3 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame show. Whoever had this last here, I guess it was Ford. The volume in my headset, very loud. Very loud.
Yeah, had it loud. I was going to say he had to adjust the arm.
No, very loud.
So he does stand.
Yes, he does. I'm sitting. I'm an old man.
Can't handle being on your feet for that long.
No, I need those arch supports. We got a commercial that's running about the arch supports. That's good stuff.
That's one you might have to pay attention to.
Yeah, I should probably go see those people. Anyway, welcome aboard. He's Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Lots to get to on today's program as we continue previewing Southeastern Conference Media Days. Today, later on, we'll be talking about Georgia, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee. Not previewing their season, mind you, but what are some of the things we're looking to hear next week from their head coaches, maybe a few other particular players. In the case of, say, Brent Venables in Oklahoma, one of the themes will be, are you ready for the SEC? Yeah, they are.
What he should say is the SEC ready for me.
Well, yeah, Gunner and I did our Gamecocks Plus TV show, The Cocktail Hour, which I hope you enjoy. And again, if you're a Gamecock Club member, you get Gamecocks Plus. You should just find the app and sign up for it and enjoy all of the great content that Dakota and the crew put out.
They watch you sweat today.
Yeah, it was way the room we were in. It's Coach Spurrier's old office, and the air conditioner was out today, and it was 79 degrees in there, and it felt like 100 because the sun was coming through the window, looking out on the field, dude.
I'm glad you guys didn't melt completely.
Gunner doesn't. Here's the thing: Gunner is cold-natured. I'm not, and Gunner has won the battle of this room that I am now in because the air conditioner stays on 75. I requested that it stay on 72, and that was apparently too cold for Bill Gunner.
72 is too cold.
So it stays on 75. Now, and I'm not Mr. Universe or anything. Now that we have, we've been doing this show for a while in this time slot, but I do try to exercise every day. I have a treadmill at home. Sometimes I do other things, but what I typically do is like treadmill in the 1 o'clock hour. Like I'd get all my show prep done, and then I'll get on the treadmill for about a half hour or so. So I usually now come in here this time of year. I come in here, basically I'm still sweating. Yes, I've had a shower. Yes, I've cleaned up, but I'm still sweating. And it takes me until like the 4 o'clock hour to finally cool down in this room. But today, yes, to come back around to the Cocktail Hour television program, yes. If you look closely, you'll probably see that I might have been sweating a little bit today. It was rough. It was rough. And we didn't have another location that we could move to once Dakota had set up and realized, it's not just a matter of me turning it down because no one uses this room very often. It was broken.
Yeah, you can't turn it down because it doesn't
We
work.
heard the fan kick on, right? Like when it kicks on, you can hear it kick on.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't know if it's out of Freon or whatever coolant they use. But anyway, we did the show today, and Bill and I disagree on Texas and Oklahoma and their place in the league. I believe, kind of to your point, I know you were saying that a little bit in jest, I think Oklahoma is absolutely ready for this conference, perhaps more so. I just think that's a better program than Texas. As we speak, Texas probably has a slightly better football team than Oklahoma. But there's no doubt in my mind that Oklahoma is a better, stronger, more stable program than Texas. Again, you and I were talking about it yesterday. Taking last year as an exception over the last decade or so, Texas was averaging more than 5 losses a year. Y'all heard me right. More than 5 losses a year. Oklahoma doesn't do that. Oklahoma had that 6-6 season when in Brent's first year. Otherwise, Oklahoma, and they went back to it last year, you win 10 games at Oklahoma minimum.
That's why they had a coaching change for Stoops, because they were only winning 7-8 games.
I mean, you win 10.
That was their dark days.
Yeah. I mean, you win 10 games. That's minimum 10 games. It's why Georgia got rid of Mark Richt. It's like, 10 wins a year. That's great, Coach. We're here for 11 or 12. And I also saw something. Help me out, JD, the guy on 3, blonde-haired guy.
Bikel?
Yeah.
Yes. He's solid. I like this.
Yeah, no, it's a good show. He and Andy, they have different shows, and sometimes they get together and do stuff. But it's a good show. I like that one. I've started watching that more. I've been a fan of Josh Pates for a while, and I've known Andy Staples a long time. But JD didn't say this, but he was taking a quote. I guess some Texas reporter set up Ewers the other day and said something to the effect of, how does it feel to be everybody's best game? It was a loaded question.
Right.
But rather than deflect it with, I don't know about that, Ewers basically took the baton and ran with it. And I just, JD was like, yeah, there's probably some truth as to why a lot of SEC fans got mad, because now they become that. And I was like, I don't, do they? It's Texas, and I know I know it sounds weird, but I mean this in a nice way. That's the arrogance of the Texas fan base, because they're used to that. They ran their conference for a while, and I think there's a lot of them who are, well, I mean, we're Texas, and we're in a conference, so we run it. And I don't even think mighty Alabama runs the SEC the way some fans in this conference think mighty Alabama runs the conference. I know some do. Well, the conference office is only half an hour away. Yeah, that's not the way it works. But I get it. But is Texas going to be everybody's biggest game? I mean, is Kentucky going to look at playing Texas and go, well, that became bigger than Georgia? Well, that became bigger than Florida.
If you play Georgia. Depends on how else you play, because, I mean, normally, no, Texas probably wouldn't be your biggest game, but this is a team that will be AP top 5. This is a team that is coming off a college football playoff berth. This is a team that has one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the country. For this year, yeah. Like for Vanderbilt, for instance. I think Texas will be a bigger game for them than Alabama, because I think Texas is better than Alabama. They did go to Alabama and beat them on an actual football field.
They did
last year.
And again, I've told you, and I said it today to Bill, I do put a small asterisk next to that game. Some people don't.
Why?
And that's
because
fine.
they might only win by 7 if they played again instead of 10?
No, I don't. If they, I don't know. I firmly believe if Bama had known all along what they needed their offense to look like, and when I say all along, going back to the spring and to August camp, Texas doesn't win that football game. That's just my opinion, and it doesn't matter because what happened happened. But that's part of what we do in sports talk.
Right.
And I said just a minute ago, to your point, I agree. I say, as we speak, Texas, of the 2 new clubs coming in, Texas has the better football team today.
Certainly.
But will they? History says no. Over the course of time. History, in my lifetime, history says no. That Texas will underachieve relative to resources and expectations. Oklahoma will not. Oklahoma doesn't necessarily overachieve relative to expectations. They just achieve. This is who Oklahoma is. This is why I said 10, 15 years ago when this chatter started the first time around. I was like, be careful what you wish for, SEC fans, when you say you want Oklahoma in this conference. It's another Alabama. It's not a big state filled with great talent. The great talent wants to stay home and go play at Big State U. But Bama has to go into Texas. Bama has to go into Florida. Bama has to go into Atlanta and Nashville.
Nationally.
Yeah. And so does Oklahoma. Again, I contend fully the school that does the best job of recruiting the state of Texas every year, in and out, historically, is the University of Oklahoma. Not the University of Texas or Texas A&M. That's just my opinion. But anyway, but we'll talk about OU today a little bit. And again, to your point, I don't know. Is the SEC ready for us? I think the SEC is ready for Texas and Oklahoma. They're used to big-time programs. But it's interesting. It's a fascinating time to know that you're bringing in 2 programs like this.
Well, it's the best time to bring them in because they're both. I think Oklahoma is on an upward trajectory. Texas is at the place they've been trying to build for ever since they won that last national title. They've been searching for a team like this to be this competitive year in, year out for a decade and a half now. So the fact they had this, I mean, if they would have entered the SEC a decade ago, buddy, it'd been ugly.
I think so, unless maybe you don't have all of the different coaching BS that you had, but
a lot of it.
Yeah, there is. but again, it's because there's also a lot of cooks in that kitchen. And I don't just mean on the football staff. You know, I mean, you're in a powerful city with a lot of people from somewhere else around Texas that come into Austin all the time, and they all went to UT, and they want to tell you how to do it. And that gets problematic. That's why I think Mac did such a good job, and why I wonder if Sark is going to be overwhelmed by that over time. Is he the kind of personality that can deal with those personalities? Mac Brown clearly could. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can.
It's that Cookvillian in him.
It's hard, man. It's really hard. But we'll get into that for you too. Brad Crawford will be with us coming up at the bottom of the hour. Terrific national college football reporter and analyst for 24/7 Sports. Knows the Gamecocks very well also. He had a piece the other day on 5 bold predictions for Carolina football, 5 what he called conservative predictions for Carolina football. We'll get into that. Brad will be at Media Days next week. We'll get his take on a few things going on ahead of the event in Dallas. And speaking of Media Days, we'll check in a little bit later on what's going on at Big 12 Media Days. Brett Yormark has spoken. I saw Awful announcing the website on their Twitter feed. Yormark said, hey, we're exploring all kinds of new television window opportunities to promote the league. And the Awful announcing Twitter feed said, like, hey, West Virginia BYU, Monday morning, 10:30, let's go. And I was like,
you heard it Pac-12 after dark. How about Big 12 before light?
Yeah, brunch.
Yeah.
Big 12 brunch.
Big 12, 5 a.m. kickoff, West Virginia, Cincinnati. You got it.
That's must-see television right there, my man. But we'll get into that. And Yormark apparently also just, at least talking a little bit about any future expansion of that conference. Now, they're also at 16, yes?
Mm-hmm. They're playing a dangerous game with that.
Man.
That's a conference that's going to cannibalize itself a ton.
That would be my fear for them. Are you the deepest one through whatever? Yes, you are.
Which is why you're only going to get one in, because
and now your
winner might have 4 losses.
Yeah, your champ is going to get in. Yeah,
and that's it.
That might be it.
It's unfortunate. I do think some of those teams can compete with any other team in the country.
Well, I mean, we saw TCU play for a title a couple of years ago. It didn't go well, but they did. They got there.
They beat Michigan to get there.
Yeah. I mean, Baylor's been good. Baylor's had, a Heisman winner. And
Utah
is a
staple.
Solid. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You're talking about like most well-run programs in the country. You can't tell me that's not top 10.
I'm curious to see, too, what happens for BYU now that they're in a conference like this for the first time ever, really.
Extreme curiosity on how that goes.
Yeah, because they are a national brand, and they do love their football. And they're
Global
good at
brand.
it. Yeah.
Think about it.
So we'll get into all those things for you, too. A couple of Braves notes. The Euros are into the semifinal round. France and Spain. You talk about heavyweights, man. France is already up, by the way, 1-0 early on Spain. I am wearing a Spain jersey today, not because I'm rooting against France. My wife was born in Spain.
You're not anti-French.
No, I'm not. I like the French. And my favorite team, Arsenal, has players on each of these teams. So I'm good. But my wife was born in Spain while her father was serving the United States in the Navy. So there's a tie with my wife to Spain.
She doesn't call Barcelona Barcelona.
She does not say the traditional pronunciations of the S sound or the C, the soft C sound. No. She sounds like she's from Horry County, South Carolina.
Very nice.
Yeah. That's right. Yes. 803-404-6100. Gamecocks made a change near the top in the football program. We'll get you some details on that as the postgame show rolls on. What a perfect time to tell you about our friends at Integrated Media. I spoke with our buddy Michael Geddes, one of the co-owners of Integrated Media today. He sent me a couple of pictures of an install job they were doing, and I let him know that a good friend of mine was going to be calling them soon about a job for later on. He said, get in line now. We are stupid busy. So there you go. That's a good thing for Integrated Media. And it's a good thing for you, too, because it's how good they are at what they do when it comes to home theater installation. But this is the time of year to call 803-948-8327. If you have been for years or even days or weeks wanting a home theater system to watch football, all your favorite sports, movies, anything else better than ever, or an outdoor system to enhance what you already do, get ahead of the football season rush. Call them today, 803-948-8327. There's nobody better in this town at making everything you watch and listen to look and sound better than ever. That's my great friends at Integrated Media. Nineteen minutes after 3 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Coming up in 10 or 12 minutes, our buddy Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports. Brad praising the hire of Darren Usher. Many people praising the hire. Darren Usher coming back to South Carolina. He is a Carolina graduate, and he's from the D.C. area. And after Carolina, got a master's degree at Georgetown while he was on their football staff. And he came most recently from Oregon, where he's been with Dan Lanning the last few seasons. He will be the new Director of Player Personnel and Recruiting for Gamecock football. He's also worked at Auburn. He's worked at UCLA. He's worked at Boise State. So he has been at schools since leaving Columbia and D.C., where football is king. And this is a big hire. Didn't really know much about, why this change was made. Sometimes it's just time for a change, and you need to step things up, and that's what Shane Beamer has done. And I think it's a nice, I don't want to say it's a coincidence per se, but it's certainly nice that Darren went to South Carolina, has worked in the athletic department while he was at Carolina. Shane was here for a bit then, so their paths may not have crossed that much back in the day, but there's at least a history of them being around the athletic department of the football program at the same time. The places he's been, he's done well. And he hasn't necessarily been the number one guy at any of these places. I mean, he's still young, for one thing, but now is his time. But coming from a place like Oregon the last couple of years, or really, too, I think, look, Auburn's one thing in terms of what they do, and I'm not trying to discount one program he's worked at over another, but I think if you look at, say, the years he spent at Boise, you gotta work really hard to get kids to Boise, because Boise State wants to recruit against a lot of those schools from out west, and they want to go head to head with them, Washington and Oregon State, schools like that, maybe Utah, because Utah recruits the heck out of California. And it just, there's that little extra. Even Oregon, Oregon, you can say, Oregon recruits itself and all that Phil Knight money. Now you still got to go recruit.
You can't just call folks.
Yeah, you gotta
make that effort.
Yeah, you're still recruiting against Southern California, Arizona and Arizona State, Washington. You still got to go get the kids. So I think this is a really big deal. How big a deal? How much success? I don't know. Ask me again in a couple of years. I don't know. South Carolina, historically, since joining the Southeastern Conference, as all of you know, has been pretty much middle of the pack in recruiting most years. They're not the best. They're not the worst.
There have been some highs.
Yeah, Coach Spurrier had a class that was around the top 10 at one point, but typically you're 6, 7, 8 in the SEC, which is typically good for 18, 19, 20, 21 in the country. That's the good bit. It's like, hey, you got top 20 classes most years.
You're just in one of those spots in the SEC that if you ever did get a top 3 class in the country, that's going to raise some red flags on how you did it.
Right. Without some consistent success on the field first.
Yes. You will get flagged.
Yeah. So congratulations to Darren Usher, and we'll try to reach out and see if we can't. I know Coach Beamer's golf tournament is coming up in a couple of weeks, so we'll make an effort to, whether it's on this program or another program on the station, to reach out to Darren and get him on and learn more about what his vision is, what he takes from the places he's been. I'm curious, Dan Lanning, Chip Kelly. What do you take from Chip? What kind of recruiter was Chip? We know Chip is a really cerebral head coach, very much into the X's and O's and the film watching.
Ahead of the curve offensively.
So what do you take, from – and there's two different things here. A director of player personnel, there's a lot about what you do to manage the current crew, and then there's a director of recruiting. To handle both, that's a big gig.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot – you and I love to talk about Venn diagrams. What's that Venn diagram like? How often does that Venn diagram change when it comes to the crossover?
Yeah. I mean, personally, in terms of his experiences, I just think even just being at Oregon, at a place like Oregon, which if you want to talk about up-and-coming programs, they've been an up-and-coming program for a while through different head coaches, but they're at a point now where they can possibly be one of the 3, 4 best programs in America, especially if they have another great year this year, and Dan Lanning is a rising star of a head coach.
Well, Josh Pate's got him number 4 in America.
And I think that even might be underselling it.
The number 4 program in America.
After this year, I'm a big believer in this year's rendition of the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than last year's. But
last year, right? 2 losses by 6 points, both to Washington.
Yeah, a team that played for the national title. Yeah, so they're pretty good. The fact that even just being in that room for a year, being in that building, being able to see how they operate, how they're able to spot and identify talent, because even though they can get 5 stars whenever they want, they do a really good job of getting guys that were maybe overlooked, or someone like Bo Nix. Bo Nix's stock was never lower than after he left Auburn, right? He was basically shooed out of Auburn. No one was shedding tears that Bo Nix transferred away from Auburn. They turned him around.
Yeah, the Auburn folk just ran him out of town.
They tapped into his potential. That's a really good staff at identifying what you can do, and then on the field, applying what you can do into obvious results. Just being in that room, even for a year, I think is immensely valuable for somebody who's coming into a place like South Carolina, where you got to be a great scouter, because like we said, if you're finishing top 3 in recruiting on a yearly basis and you never win more than 8 games, you're going to get flagged for something. I don't know what it is, but something's getting flagged, right?
Yep.
So you got to be able to identify the best 3, 4-star talent that might be overlooked, and you got to be able to do it at a point where you can apply it for your other coaches who are calling plays or maybe giving on-field instruction.
I think this is I think it's a great hire, like I say, and to further your point, he's been at places where, look, nobody these days, just has people just, oh, come on in, or that's just, you got to work it. Mm-hmm. And in this new era especially, you got to work it. But to have him with that experience, that resume, he also interned with the Commanders and DC United. Again, he's from up that way. So he's got a wealth of experience in a relatively short amount of time, but a big job ahead of him, no doubt. But welcome aboard, Darren Usher, and we'll effort him, industry term.
That's right, big industry term.
On the program soon enough here. Spain is now up 2-1 on France.
Yeah, how did that happen?
We're not even at the half-hour mark.
It was 1-0 before I went to break.
Spain scored 2 quick.
I'm in the middle of talking to you, and yet you have this look on your face because you're looking up at the TV on that side of the glass, and I have it over here to my left. And I saw you look up and have a funny look on your face, and I look over and I see there's 2 next to Spain. I'm like, that's incredible.
This could be one of those. Come back on the other side of the break. Our buddy Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports, will join us. He has an interesting couple of notes on what he's looking at for the Gamecocks and some of his previews of SEC Media Days. Brad joins us when the postgame show continues. Looking forward to that for sure. Also looking forward, believe it or not, to cutting the grass this week before I get out of town to Dallas. That Toro Time Master is going to help me out because it's going to be hot. But it's got to get done, kids. Got to get done. And if you are ready to cut your grass quicker, better, more efficiently than ever, stop into Cato's Power Equipment. See my buddy Ben, see Matt and the crew, and let them do for you what they did for me. Let them fit you with the mower that is perfect for you. You might want a rider. You might want a push behind. Yeah, you might want a battery powered. All right, they can check all of the boxes for you. If you're doing it for a living, is it time to upgrade your equipment? Is it time to just get that equipment serviced? Like, why doesn't this cut the way it used to? Maybe it's just time for new blades. Get that engine just, tuned up a little bit. The service department get you in, get you out quick because they know you're ready to go do it. Whether you cut your own backyard, whether you do it for a living, see Cato's for excellent sales, service, and advice. A lot of great specials going on, too. 4012 West Beltline Boulevard and always online at catospowerequipment.com. Talking college football on this Tuesday. SEC Media Days less than a week away. Big 12 Media Days underway in Vegas. And you say, wait, Jay, didn't Big 12 Media Days used to be in Dallas? Yes. Yes, it did.
Not anymore.
And then the Southeastern Conference said, yeah, now we're coming.
We're taking Dallas from you.
Although I got to tell you, man, if Media Days was in Vegas, ain't none of us working.
Oh, no. That's danger for all of us.
So there's that.
We'd be chasing Ford all over town.
Our good friend Brad Crawford will be in Dallas for SEC Media Days. Good to see him last year in Nashville, Tennessee, and he'll be in Big D with us next week. How are you, sir?
Hey, good to hear from you, man. I am officially done with summer break, man. My busy season starts next week in Dallas. I know y'all does too.
Yeah. I just had a nice week on the South Carolina coast, and other than moving some kids into school a couple of times, it's pretty much all work. Before we get into some things on the field, I know you tweeted about this, as have many, but your quick take for the audience on Darren Usher being hired by Shane Beamer and what you believe this does for Carolina football.
Yeah, it's a very good hire, I think, moving forward for South Carolina's recruiting arm. Obviously, what means the most is, how much money boosters pour into NIL. I think this hire has much to do with that, kind of earmarking funds for certain positions. And as I've spoken, man, to many SEC staffers in that player personnel role, I mean, we're almost looking at like salary caps nowadays, where when you get guys in the portal or you're looking at 4- and 5-star high school recruits, you have to sort of earmark contracts and certain money for certain positions, offensive line, edge, wide receiver, quarterback, obviously being the big four. So I think it's a great hire moving forward. He's obviously going to help Shane, find some guys that might be off South Carolina's radar nationally. He already has a proven pipeline to the DMV area. The Gamecocks recruit that area very well already. So he's a Gamecock grad and somebody who really wants to be in Columbia. And anytime you pull a staffer from Oregon, what I consider a top 5 program, pretty dang good.
Yeah, agreed with you 100%. Brad has a piece out this week at 247sports.com, and for those of you locally at thebigspur.com, with 5 bold and 5 conservative predictions for Carolina football. And I want to start you with one that I get you called bold, but I think it is just crucial regardless, and that is that South Carolina, a bold prediction, will produce an all-SEC linebacker. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but regardless, Brad, that's a position that must get better and seemingly has for Shane going into this year.
Yeah, it feels like it's been forever. Really, almost 2 coaching cycles since the Gamecocks have had a true difference maker at that position. Sky Moore, I mean, he was a guy that led the team in interceptions at that one season as an all-SEC player. But I think right now this is the deepest linebacker room South Carolina's had, certainly under Shane Beamer, possibly under the previous regime as well. I mean, Bam Martin-Scott's a guy who is going to take a major leap this season into that starting role. Debo Williams obviously is one of the SEC's hardest hitters and has shown flashes in recent years. But the 2 guys I'm looking at, man, are Demetrius Knight, transfer from Georgia Tech, who, Nicky Minwari has said on social media and various times this offseason that, Demetrius Knight's a guy who is going to be quite impactful at that position. And then Bengali Kamara, a linebacker from Pitt who's been uber productive in the ACC previously. So Gamecocks go about 4 deep at that position, feel really good about it. And I think, Shane Beamer may not have felt that way 5 or 6 months ago when he lost 2 linebackers to the portal. But the 2 guys he replaced them with are pretty darn talented players. And I think it's a position group that is no longer a weakness in Columbia.
Brad, I want to turn the attention now to the offensive side of the ball. One of your conservative predictions was that Lenora Sellers is going to fall short of 3,000 yards. And a lot of what you alluded to is how they're going to run the offense. They have a loaded running back room. Lenoris has a different skill set than what Spencer Rattler has. And I've maintained that probably the most important people in that football building is Dow Loggins, because he's tasked with really making a new offense to cater towards Lenoris' skill set. How do you see that looking on the field in terms of differences in how the offensive looks schematically this year from last year?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more zone read and option-type plays out of this offense. I think for the most part last season and the year before that with Marcus Satterfield, South Carolina tried to keep Spencer Rattler upright as much as possible. He didn't run the ball much. There certainly was not a ton of quarterback design runs. That's going to change a good bit with Norris Sellers and Robbie Ashford, the Auburn transfer behind him. I think this offensive staff is going to do whatever it can to keep Lenora Sellers healthy. However, this guy's big, man. He's almost 6'5", 250 pounds. He's going to be able to take a hit, and he's somebody who I think can get 10 to 12 carries a game. Obviously, the backfield is brand new with 3 transfers there. So, South Carolina's going to enter that season opener next month against Old Dominion with, 3 ball carriers that it feels really good about, and a quarterback making his first career start that is a true dual threat, probably the first, the Gamecocks have had in several seasons. So I think he's going to fall short of 3,000 yards passing because I don't think that's the recipe for success for this Gamecock offense. I think you're going to see more balance, maybe 60-40 run pass. And, if these 3 transfers are as good as advertised in the backfield, this running game should be light years better than it has been in recent years.
Talking to Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports National College Football Analyst, has a piece out on the Gamecocks. All right, so we just gave you 2 of the 10 predictions that you made. So let me put you on the spot, but you can handle it. Of the other 8, or maybe it's one of the 2 that we gave you, which one of these, as you were writing this, might have surprised you the most that this is what you published?
Yeah, Gamecocks getting a bowl invite, man. To be honest with you, for the last 5 or 6 months, I go through every SEC schedule. I predict these wins, losses for every team. I've hit South Carolina a lot in my career these last, decade plus. But I didn't feel good about Gamecocks bowl chances until, speaking to a few other staffers here recently. They really feel confident, man, inside that locker room that they can start September hot, possibly win that road game at Kentucky. And Jay, I've been saying all summer, man, that's the most important game of the year, and it's only week 2 for South Carolina.
Right.
You start off 1-0, then all of a sudden the LSU game, while it's a winnable game, it's not a must-win. But you start 0-1 in Lexington, you come back home to Williams-Brice, you have to be LSU because it's going to be very hard to, pull out of an 0-2 SEC hole and still get to 6 wins.
Yeah, Elijah and I called it the most pivotal game in week 2 that we can remember. So we're certainly there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons why I think this team can be bowl eligible and can beat Kentucky is because one group of the ball that you don't really have to worry about too much is defense. And one of your picks on here too, or one of your predictions was Clayton White keeping his job. With all the players coming back, you already hit on that linebacker room, which is absolutely loaded. But you have a really good defensive front. You mentioned how good Tonka Hemingway can be this year. The secondary brings back a lot of production. How good do you think this team or this defense will be relative to the rest of the conference?
Yeah, I feel considerably more confident on the defensive side of the ball than I do offensive as far as, Gamecocks defense can finish in that top 8, the mid to top tier of the SEC on that side. Clayton White obviously, struggled the first 6 or 7 weeks last season, and then he found something in mid-October. I think a lot of it was the schedule lightened up a bit, but putting that 5th defensive back on the field seemed to really help this defense. The Gamecocks were flying around, something they didn't do the first half of the 2023 slate. And like you said, there's a ton of starters back. They've added those 2 quality linebackers from the portal. Tonka Hemingway's a guy that, I spoke to a NFL draft analyst a couple weeks ago, and he thinks Tonka Hemingway is someone who can creep into that, late first-round range if he has a good final season. And then, of course, there's Dylan Stewart. Clayton White did not have a 5-star talented edge rusher that he could just throw out there, 15 to 20 snaps a game last season. Now he has that. I don't think he has to lean on Dylan Stewart to be a superstar. But, watching that kid in the spring game, he's somebody the Gamecocks can use and use immediately on that side of the ball.
The new D-Stew. That's what I keep calling him. My guy Darian played in Denver for many years, too, after Carolina. So I'll take that. But first things first here in Columbia. Before we let you go, and we'll see you in Dallas next week, what's the storyline you're most looking forward to cover next week, or the one that you think might bring the most intrigue?
Yeah, I'm very interested in seeing, besides welcoming Texas and OU in the SEC and hearing from Sark and Brent Venables, I want to see what SEC media has to say, outside of the Carolinas and maybe Mississippi about Ole Miss. They're a team that I slotted number 3 way back in February, my way too early rankings. They've only improved the roster since. Really, this offseason, man, 11-win team. All they lost was Quinshon Judkins. Yeah, he's a 1,500-yard rusher, but, look at what they got coming back. And, Ole Miss boosters went out and spent money in the portal and pretty much refaced the defense entirely. So I think Lane Kiffin's star is going to shine right, and I'm interested in seeing, because him and Shane speak Monday. Is he going to steal the show, or is it going to be another sleepy Lane at the podium?
In a year from now, is Lane Kiffin at SEC Media Days as the head coach of the Florida Gators?
I think he is. I don't know who started that rumor, but it's got some legs, because several media guys that I've spoken to have, already said that every power broker in Gainesville wants Lane Kiffin. He's the guy I think, Jay, they should have hired back when Dan Mullen got the job.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I think there were still some, I don't know, maturity concerns, if that's the right way to put it. I don't know. I mean, the man's in his 40s, but I get it. I get it. We'll see. Always appreciate you, sir. We'll see you next week. Safe travels out there, and here we go, man. Another year coming up.
Yeah, man, good to hear from y'all.
You too, buddy. Appreciate you. That's Brad Crawford. You can follow Brad all the time if you don't already on Twitter. Crawford247 is the way to do it. And, again, 247sports.com, or a lot of times locally here at thebigspur.com. He knows what's up.
He does. He agrees with you. Lane Kiffin, Florida Gator head coach.
It makes too much sense. And I like what he's doing at Ole Miss, but Ole Miss can't compete if you want to start playing real big boy, not big boy football, but big boy money. Ole Miss can't do that.
You don't think so?
Not like Florida can, man.
I know they have a couple of individually very wealthy donors that basically fund the NIL portion of the university.
Maybe. If they're super happy, we'll see. We'll talk more about what Brad told us when the postgame show rolls on. 11 minutes in front of 4 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Thanks again to our buddy Brad Crawford for joining us. Coming up next hour, Elijah and I will, we know what we're going to do, but we haven't given each other our question.
It's been a big secret.
Could be a rhetorical question for the biggest question for each school next Tuesday at Media Days. We're doing 4 of these a day. Yesterday we did the 4 that go on Carolina's Day. Vandy, LSU, and Ole Miss also on day 1. Day 2, which we'll preview next hour, Georgia, Mizzou, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. European Championships, halftime, semifinal number 1, Spain up 2-1 on France. If you're a college football fan, this is like Ohio State playing Georgia.
Pretty much, yeah. This is great. And then England and Netherlands. I'm trying to think of what a good comparison.
That one's going to be
has had a reputation for getting close and blowing it.
England is Oregon, and Netherlands is like maybe like TCU the other year. You know, they're good, they're solid, but they sneak. They're not quite as powerful.
I was thinking maybe like England is pre-first national championship Clemson.
Could be that. Yeah, it could be that.
Because all the talent in the world.
I like pulling for England, though, so I don't like that comparison
so you don't
as much as you.
You don't, yeah. I do
I'll be wearing my England jersey tomorrow.
There is something that's really fun about England losing and getting to make Revolutionary War jokes on Twitter. It's great.
Well, what did I see?
So I can make fun of England losing.
I forget who said it last week, but I saw the best one was England blew a 13-colony lead.
Yeah, that's a good one. I want that on a T-shirt.
But
see, now if Spain finishes the deal here and England wins tomorrow, we need to make Spanish Armada shirts and say we're going to party like it's 1588.
That's good. That's good. Of course, my buddy Lee Morris, who is the head coach of the SC United Bantams and has been. In fact, we should call Lee this week. Oh, man, I need to call Lee tomorrow. I've been so busy with football stuff, I just hadn't gotten into this football with him. But last year when Lee was on, talked something about the 4th. And Lee is from England, by the way, for those of you. And he played for Leicester and a few other clubs in England. He's been here in South Carolina for a while now. But I said, what are you doing for the 4th? And he goes, we don't celebrate treason, mate. So thought that was solid.
I do.
But yeah, last week, England blew a 13-colony lead. Again, thanks to Brad for joining us. By the way, I won't go through like all of them in terms of what Brad says. You can find this for yourself on the interwebs if you'd like.
It's a freebie.
It is. But his predictions were bold. Carolina produces all SEC linebacker. Conservative. Nick Harbor transforms to wide receiver 1 status. Bold. Ground game's best season since 2020. Conservative. Lenoris Sellers falls short of 3,000 yards. Bold. Josh Simon leads the team in touchdown catches out of that tight end spot.
That might be the most bold.
Yeah, maybe
But I am a Josh Simon truther myself.
Okay.
I do think he will play very well this year. It'll be a good breakout year.
Conservative. Clayton White keeps his job. Bold. Tonka Hemingway enters first-round discussion. Brad mentioned that. Conservative. Gamecocks get the bowl invite. Bold. Carolina beats a ranked team, which, again, they have not done since the Clemson win of 22.
They've taken some years off in that category.
Conservative. Shane Beamer hot seat talk simmers. Those are the predictions that Brad made. I personally, and a friend of mine yesterday sent me, it was another service, and now I don't have it in front of me, so I forget. I mean, it was something decently legit that said that Shane Beamer was on the hot seat, like almost as hot a seat as Pittman and Napier. He's not.
No.
In fact, I don't – listen, to some degree, y'all, with few exceptions for those that have achieved massive sustained success, Nick Saban when he was still coaching, Kirby Smart right now, maybe that's it. Seriously, because Jim Harbaugh left. Everybody's seat is warm all the time. Nobody's like, oh, I can just show up to work every day, whatever I feel like it, and kick my feet up.
6-6 for a couple more years sounds pretty good.
I'm good. Nobody's going to fire me. I mean, Ryan Day is on a really warm seat, and he might have the most talent in the country. But he hadn't, he needs to win a national title. right? Like that's what you do at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you won 11 games again. Great.
Or at least beat Michigan.
Did you win 14? Because that's what we're going for here, there, sport. Or 15, I guess it is now. 16, right? How many you got to win now? I don't even know, Elijah. If you get a bye, you get one less. But
let's see.
16.
You get 12, 13, 16.
16.
Or if you don't get the bye, if you're someone like Notre Dame, you got to play 17.
You don't have to win 17 games, but you got to play 17 games. But you might need to win 15 of them. But anyway, everybody's seat is warm. But I personally, and I got no inside intel here or anything like that, but I personally believe that Ray Tanner and the brass will take an approach very similar to what Mitch Barnhart did with Coach Stoops when he, after 5 years, was 25 and 35, averaging 5 and 7 a year. All right, I like what I see. And then Stoops has had, a couple of 10-win seasons, a couple of New Year's Day games, put some dudes in the NFL. Again, the lack of patience around here has often been troubling. I don't see that happening for Shane anytime soon. Hour 2 coming up. 4 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. It's the second hour of the post-game show. Along with Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. We appreciate you being with us. Elijah and I, comfortable inside the Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia, where right now I've got 94 degrees.
I got 92 inside my side of the studio. Says it feels like 92 as well.
Hopefully not literally. All right.
No, in here, the thermostat's at 74, which like beggars can't be choosers, but it's a little warm for me.
Yeah. I got 75 over here, but I can feel the air just kicked on, so.
Yeah. If I had it my way, the sucker's 68.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But, again, I Gunner's over here, teeth chattering.
I'm the exact opposite of Gunner because my dream home is an igloo.
Nice.
One day.
I could do that. I'd still be sweating.
Same, yeah. I'd still need a fan next to my bed.
Yeah. No, I can sweat in a walk-in freezer, man. I'm that guy.
Same way. I'm lucky I haven't destroyed the shirt.
Yeah, there you go.
I've had to roll the sleeves up, but
I'm wearing shorts and a soccer jersey, man.
I dress for fashion today more than I did for comfort. Which usually isn't the routes I take.
Yeah. I work in radio, although now there is a camera here. Somebody decided that was a good idea.
There is. Now I have to wear a shirt when I do the show.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah. No, I usually wear a shirt every day. Usually.
I don't if I don't have to.
And before we go any farther and start to creep people out, we'll switch back on to
the most Florida man thing that has ever come out of my mouth.
That's right. 803-404-6100 if you want it. No, never mind. But no, if you would like to contact the program. This hour we're going to spend with more of our preview of SEC Media Days, which again begin on Monday. To let you know, both the halftime show and the post-game show will be broadcasting live from the Omni in Dallas. Looking forward to that. By the way, I saw that the Men in Blazers, Raj Bennett, along with a couple of people from Dallas that I didn't recognize names of, will be hosting a Copa America Championship watch party at 7 o'clock Sunday night, and it's only like 4 miles from our hotel.
Ooh.
But the thing is, I think we land around that time. I'm not sure exactly.
Be tough, yeah.
So my daughter's already I was like, man, I cannot believe that we have to leave on a day when both the European Championship and the Copa America Championship are being played. They're like, Dad, get the Wi-Fi on the plane. I was like, So you know what I'm going to do?
Get the Wi-Fi on the plane.
Nailed it.
Bingo.
But I think we get off the plane while the Copa one gets going. So, by the way, tonight.
I haven't even looked at my plane ticket yet.
Tonight is Argentina and Canada. Canada made it to the semifinal. Ugh. I'm just mad.
Jerome McGinley still play? Wait, wrong sport.
No, it is. I'm just mad because America didn't make it. But I saw that Drake put a $300,000 bet on Canada to beat Argentina. I don't know what the odds are. I imagine that he would get like 5 or 6 to 1 on that. I don't know.
Something like that, yeah. They're pretty heavy underdogs. Wasting that money, though.
But what I said on Twitter was that when Argentina does win, that Drake will rip off his Maple Leaf shirt, and under it will be a Lionel Messi Argentina jersey. And he'll be like, I knew it all along, man. It's just
always believed in.
Oh, yeah, because that dude would go to the NBA Finals with how like moms that have a kid that plays
split jersey.
Yeah.
He could just do the Rob Lowe thing where he went to an NFL game wearing an NFL hat.
Like a referee hat.
Just hoping both teams have fun.
You think I don't know. Rob Lowe's funny in a lot of stuff, but I wonder, does he know? Was he just there? Like, does he know football?
He's a big fan of the NFL.
I guess so.
He loves every team.
I guess he got paid, but I could see Drake, like Lakers Celtics finals. He's got the split jersey.
He's got a split Magic Johnson and Larry Bird jersey. Yeah. He'd be one of those guys.
I could totally see that.
Yeah, wouldn't be stunned at all.
But that's what he'll do tonight, man. It's like, I knew Argentina was going to win. You go. Way to go.
Instagram picture of him in a Messi jersey.
Right.
Classic.
All right, let's jump in. I do want to get into a few things that Brett Yormark has said at Big 12 Media Days. We'll come back around to that in just a little bit. But as promised, we're going to discuss what's going on at SEC Media Days next Tuesday. That's our preview day for a week from now. Georgia, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee. I want to take this shorter segment, if you don't mind, Mr. Campbell, to discuss Georgia, because quite honestly, I struggled with like what I think is the most pressing question for Georgia. In my personal opinion, Georgia was definitely the best team in America last year. You had one really difficult late loss on a neutral field to a solid Alabama team, and the committee, in its infinite wisdom, dropped you to 6th from 1, which is just dumb, but whatever.
Yeah, don't pee down your leg. You don't get in that situation.
I get it. I get it. I know. I get it. So that's all true. They have the strongest team coming back this year. I think they and Ohio State do. I think others have a little bit more work to do, but I think Georgia and Ohio State are kind of 1A, 1B, in my opinion, from a talent perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you say, don't pee down your leg for 1 second there and you have it happen. But, I mean, that's not the pressing question. Like, what is the pressing question? Replacing some wide receivers? Just replacing 4 and 5 stars with more 4 and 5 stars? And I don't say that with any kind of arrogance or like flip. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to be flip either. I mean, I just put on here how to get even better, or is there just pressure at the top? Like, I don't know what Georgia's pressing issues. I don't think they have any.
They're minimal. I mean, if like according to their standards, right? So let's look at it. Like the run defense was mine. Can you improve your run defense? Because how did they lose the Alabama game? Outside of Carson Beck peeing down his leg whenever he tried to hand the ball off and gift Alabama a touchdown, Alabama ran all over them.
They did.
And that was the one thing about this Georgia team, that if they had a flaw, if there was anything that you could do to Georgia, it was run the ball on them. Because, the last 2 years in their championship seasons, they had historically great defenses, and no one ran the ball on them. This past year was the first time since 2018 that a Kirby Smart coached Georgia team gave up over 100 yards rushing per game and gave up more than 3 yards per carry a game. And they lose 2 draft picks on that line.
Yeah.
This is a year that Nazir Stackhouse on the defensive line and on the end, Michael Williams, who were both 5-star blue-chip guys, need to step up and show why they were blue-chip guys. They're really good football players. I think Michael Williams is fantastic. I think Nazir Stackhouse is one of the more intriguing interior D linemen in all of college football. His interception, his pick 6 against Missouri is still one of the funniest plays of the season last year. But last year they had a tendency to get gashed on the ground. Yeah. And you're going to play some really good running attacks starting in week 1 against Clemson. If there's anything that we know about Clemson, it's that Phil Maffa's a good running back. And it's that they're going to be able to pick up yardage on the ground. If there's anything we know about teams like Alabama and Kentucky, who they also have to travel to, they can get you on the ground a little bit. They have good rushing attacks. If there's anything we know about Texas, where they have to travel this year, C.J. Baxter has the potential to be a 1,000-yard rusher. Whenever the starting running back, Jonathan Brooks, went down for Texas, they did not skip a beat in the run game because they have a great offensive line and run-blocking unit. They're going to play their fair share of really good run-blocking units and teams. The only thing I think that can keep them from going undefeated and winning the SEC this year is that. But that's the only thing. Wide receiver, I think, is a minimal worry for them. It's a minimal question because I like Dominic Lovett, and he still almost had 700 yards last year. Ra Thomas had about 400, and he missed 3 games. And you bring in a former receiver from Miami. You lose Brock Bowers, but I think Oscar Delp is like baby Brock Bowers.
I do too.
He's like the light version.
Yeah, Delp is great.
When you get an app and there's a light version to unlock all the cool features that make having the app worth it, you have to pay for the real version. Right. Oscar Delp is elite Georgia tight end light version, and then you got to pay like $2.99 to upgrade to Brock Bowers.
And they may be able to do that within a few weeks' time in this season because I think when he becomes the primary guy, that happens. And
here's why he can be the primary guy. Out of all the SEC quarterbacks that are going to be playing this season, a lot of them threw the ball downfield a lot, but Carson Beck really didn't. He doesn't need somebody to constantly go down the field and make plays. I mean, he finished with an average depth of target of around 8.5 yards. And your average in the SEC for quarterbacks playing this year is about 10. Yeah. So he dinks and dunks a lot. Only 12% of his throws went over 19 yards in the air. So what they do on offense is really good at just gashing you with paper cuts in the pass game and running it down your throat. So while the receivers can be a question mark because there's certainly much better receiver rooms in this conference, the one thing that I think will keep Georgia from reaching their ultimate goal is if they run into a team who picks up 5 or 6 yards per carry.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And again, look, a defensive-minded head coach like Kirby's going to obviously realize that and understand where that one little hiccup along the way happened because, again, it derailed everything. I don't believe it should have. And, of course, that will never happen again because a team like Georgia just simply has to have a home game instead. And
Darn.
If the rankings were what they were and we had a 12-school playoff last year. What do we think, though, that Kirby will be asked? I mean, will it be about his team? Will it be something larger? Again, he's now he's the elder statesman, right?
Yeah. He's the king of the conference in terms of coaches.
I mean, so there's what's new for Kirby. Yeah, Nick's gone. Unless I'm forgetting somebody, and I don't think I mean Stoops has been at Kentucky longer, but
when he went in titles.
But he's not Kirby Smart. So, I mean, Kirby now, again, Stoops can assume a certain seniority role, but yeah, Kirby has 2 championships. So he becomes the guy.
In terms of longevity, yeah, Stoops is 12 years at Kentucky, and the second most would be Kirby Smart. This would be 9 years.
So he's been 8, right? Yeah. So this is 9 coming up. Yeah. But he's going to feel like he's on top. I say he. I think people will. I don't know. Kirby probably didn't
His
give
perception.
a crap.
Yeah. The perception of Kirby Smart is definitely that him and that bad haircut are number one in terms of being the kings of the conference and coaching.
But I think that's just, there's just not a whole lot there. Again, the pressure is always immense. That's nothing new. And I'm not here to predict that Georgia rolls through everybody. I think earlier I say a couple weeks ago we might have said, is Georgia going to be favored in every game they play? Probably, but maybe that game in Austin they're not. Depending. Yeah,
if both teams are undefeated,
then they won't.
Because Texas is definitely going to have Michigan's going to be down, but playing at Michigan will always be tough. But that and Oklahoma are Texas's 2 big games before playing Georgia. If they go through both of those unscathed, and we have 2 undefeated teams playing each other in Austin on October 19th. We might see a Georgia team be an underdog, maybe, just because they are playing on the road. Like if that game was played in Athens, Georgia's going to be a favorite.
Is there a line on the Texas-Michigan game already anywhere?
I think there should be. They usually have them a couple weeks in advance, and of course they change, pretty frequently.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but I would think that Texas goes up there as close to touchdown favorites. It's not that
I would make it a touchdown favorite.
I don't. Michigan, listen, I like what Michigan does, and I'm pulling for Sharon Moore, and it's a good story.
3.5.
3.5.
It's a 3.5-point favorite at Michigan.
Yeah.
That's intriguing.
Yeah.
This is per FanDuel for those who are interested.
Yeah, I don't know what the questions around Georgia football really are. It's just, again, there's nothing pressing.
It's nitpicking.
Yeah.
I mean, I just nitpicked that they gave up 114 yards on the ground last year.
And that is a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, there are some teams that would die to only give up 114. Like Alabama gave up $125 last year. Ole Miss gave up $153. LSU gave up $161 to anybody. Missouri gave up $123. That's still towards near the top of the SEC. But if you look at what Georgia usually holds people to since 2019, it's been 75, 72, 79, 77.
Yeah.
Which is cartoonish.
Wow.
That's cartoonish.
Yeah, it is, actually.
That's not real. That's almost an unrealistic expectation to have for almost half a decade. People don't just do that. Defenses that just don't let you run the ball. And they, for once, had a non-elite rush defense, and that just so happened to cost them the one game they lost.
We'll come back on the other side, and without telling you who it is, I can almost guarantee that there will be at least one question to the next guy we discuss about his shoes. Postgame show coming right back. Been telling you for a while about the great folks at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union and how they make banking a lot easier for their members, and they are taking the next step. If you've been thinking about a change from one of the big banks to Palmetto Citizens, here's another great opportunity. Listen, there's a lot of things that happen online these days, and an enhanced digital banking experience is coming soon from the folks at Palmetto Citizens. In just a few weeks' time, they'll have a revamped online and mobile experience. They want you to have convenient access to your accounts. They know it's important. They want you to be able to get in, get out, whether it's in the office or online. You'll have credit score information, more business banking platforms, push notifications, alert options, an easier way to make transfers, and so much more. When the new systems launch, you'll be able to just take a lot of the things you've been doing and do them a whole lot easier. My wife and I are members. We love what we get from Palmetto Citizens. We think you will too. 14 convenient Midlands locations all across town and always online at palmettocitizens.org, where you can achieve your potential. Twenty minutes after 4 o'clock on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. It's the post-game show. Spain 2, France 1, 63rd minute. Big save from Unai Simon of Spain to keep it 2-1 just a second ago. Again, this is like Georgia and Ohio State playing each other in football.
It's a mega matchup.
This is big time, man. Big time stuff. Continuing our coverage, or previews rather. Coverage is next week when it actually happens. Previewing what we expect, maybe want. Little subliminal stuff in there for SEC Media Days. And I mentioned shoes. Eli Drinkwitz loves him some flashy sneakers. And Elijah, you'll see firsthand that he will absolutely have on, I don't know what it'll be, probably some type of really cool Air Jordans or something like that.
Whatever his kids or players tell him is cool.
But apparently he's a sneakerhead.
Totally looks like one.
But he'll have something on, I promise. I don't know what. But
he's not walking in there barefooted.
No, but here's the thing. I do have a question for them. Can you handle the new expectation level for your program? Because I think their fans and other third-party observers, maybe not everybody, will look at Missouri and say, based on what you did last year, coupled with what you return, which is a lot of production, and I know you probably got some specifics for me, they should be a playoff team. Will they be a conference championship contender? Don't know about that. They start with Murray State, then they've got the fighting Pete Limbos of Buffalo. Looking forward to that one, to be honest with you. Yeah, come on, Pete. Then BC, then Vanderbilt. All four of those games in Como. So they'll more than likely be 4-0 with one conference win before they hit the road to A&M. Then they go to Massachusetts. That's interesting.
And is Victor Cruz still wide receiver there?
I don't think he is.
Marcus Camby at center?
No, I don't think so, man.
Rough.
Yeah. God, Camby. Dude, Camby's got to be pushing 50.
Certainly, yeah. Oh, he's been retired from the NBA for like a decade.
I mean, that was mid-'90s, and I'm in my 50s, and that wasn't much long after I got out of college. So
you guys are similar age.
They host Auburn. They go to Alabama. They host Oklahoma. They travel to South Carolina and Mississippi State, then close out the shop with Arkansas. In a relative sense, if I may, that's not the most daunting of SEC schedules this year.
Honestly, it's probably the least daunting of SEC schedules of anyone.
You do go to Alabama. Yes, that's hard. A&M could be difficult. I don't know. I don't know.
That might be that, and Alabama are the two.
Well, sure, on the road, right? Hosting Oklahoma, but they've done that in the old Big 8, Big 12 days. So they're like, oh, good, Oklahoma's coming back. They come here. And let me just say, I used to say it about Kentucky, and I still do. But you now have a 2-game win streak over Kentucky, South Carolina fans. It is bleeping time to beat bleeping Missouri.
It was time a couple of years ago to beat Missouri.
You can't keep losing to Eli. What is this guy doing? Again, App State plus Mizzou. I think he's got 4 in a row over South Carolina. Time to end that streak. Might be. Is it 5? It's 4.
Ooh. Let's see. We got him, beat him last year.
Well, when was the Mizzou game? Or excuse me, the App State game? That was 19. So I think it might be 5 in a row. Is it 20, 21, 22, and 20? Somebody check that out.
I'm looking at the seasons from 19, and from 19 to now, Missouri has beaten South Carolina every year.
Yeah.
It doesn't go back even further than that.
Okay, that's fine.
I can look it up.
But you're looking at Carolina in 19, App State? Was that 19?
Carolina, App State would be Live Radio.
Because that was Eli. Yeah, no, Live Radio, it's fine. You're looking at
App State, yeah. App State was 19, 15, 20 to 15.
Yeah. Oh, that game was I hate to say I predicted that they were going to lose, but I did.
Well, that's what Appalachian State does, regardless of who's coaching.
But Carolina was in a funk, and that's really, with all due respect to everybody involved, that was when I first said, listen, this Muschamp thing ain't working.
You got App Stated.
You can't keep playing not to lose. And all Will did was play not to lose. And that doesn't work, man. And you may say, well, Jay, what's the difference in playing not to lose and playing to win? A lot.
There's a difference.
There's a difference.
My old coaches in basketball called it playing scared.
Yeah.
You play like you're scared to lose, not that you're aggressive to win.
Right. Which is why I like it that, whether it works or not sometimes, you're instilling that in the players now. Shane going for it more on 4th downs and taking more chances. And again, kicking that was close. That was close.
I can see it in your face.
I
had the dump button ready. I was like,
I'm glad
This
you did,
finger
because I
was-
almost did.
This finger is getting
Kicking
close
a
to it.
field goal when it's 30-3 on the road at College Station. Who does that? Well, I tell you, one guy did, Will Muschamp.
That's hilarious.
So
30-3.
anyway, but let's talk about Missouri here. No, can they handle the expectations? Because that's what it's going to be next week. You're a contender now. It's one thing for Eli to enter things in July. Let's see. Again, they'll be 4-0. They'll have some confidence going to College Station. They'll be 4-0. Unless they beat themselves, they will beat the combination of Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Vanderbilt.
Yes.
So it's a nice month to get your feet not just wet, but nice and soaked. And then you're ready to jump in and go. But, yeah, going to A&M, going to Alabama. But otherwise, the home games, Oklahoma, Auburn, coming to Carolina, going to State, home with Arkansas. That's a very manageable conference slate in a year when we say a lot of people are going to have some really hard conference schedules.
I wrote down in my notes that obviously the three big games are that it's at Oklahoma, at Alabama, at A&M. All three of those, if they win two of those three, there's a good chance we see them in Atlanta just because the schedule isn't daunting. They should beat Auburn at home.
Agreed.
They absolutely should beat South Carolina here in terms of what they're bringing back.
What they have, yes.
Yes, that with what that offense is, I don't care how good South Carolina's defense is. They score a lot of points,
They do.
man, and they bring back the entire receiving group. They might have them and Ole Miss have the two best receiving groups in the SEC, and I feel really confident with that. And they should absolutely beat the hell out of Mississippi State and Arkansas, whether playing in Starkville, Fayetteville, or the Moon. They should beat all of them by multiple touchdowns. The one thing that I think that can keep them from doing that is the secondary. The secondary, like they did lose two NFL players in that secondary with Ennis Rackstraw and Chris Abrams-Drain, all SEC caliber dudes. So that's the least experienced group that they have at the moment is that secondary room. And you do play some teams. I think Connor Weigman from A&M is a really solid quarterback. He can let it fly. I think Jalen Milroe, if he is anything like he was in the back half of last year, throws a great deep ball. You're going to need your safeties and corners to be able to play in coverage and to be able to go one-on-one. If they can't do that, then maybe they don't beat Alabama. They don't beat A&M. Or if Jackson Arnold is what he was supposed to be coming out of high school, because Oklahoma has a lot of really good weapons. We're going to get into that later. They can beat you as well. If your secondary is really bad and you're losing shootouts through the air, there's a good chance you go 0-3 in that stretch and you don't achieve what your potential was coming into the year.
Again, I don't know how they did it, but they managed to draw again. What's rather favorable, and with the early non-con, again a chance to get your feet wet, and time for a few schools to look at Missouri and say, "Oh, you are legit." And the question then becomes, and this isn't so much a media days question, obviously, but we asked Brad Crawford last hour: is Lane Kiffin in 1 year's time at media days as the head coach of the Florida Gators? Is Eli Drinkwitz somewhere else? I don't know who's going to need a coach next year. I think Florida's going to. Quite honestly, unless Billy Napier, and we'll talk about Florida later in the week, if they don't win 9 games, I know that's putting a lot on them considering what they've been, but it's Florida.
And what their schedule is this year.
But maybe 8, and if you can really see a trajectory towards some positive outcomes in the future. But who might want an Eli Drinkwitz? I'm not predicting it, and he's got a nice contract right now.
I know the market's going to be there for him.
Yeah.
Certainly. If they win 10 games.
I mean, love him or hate him, and most people are in the latter.
Especially around here.
Dude wins. So, and he's growing that program. So there's something to be said for that. But again, my biggest question, can you handle the expectations? Can your players handle the expectations? Especially if you get out of September undefeated and you start going on the conference road. Speaking of Brent Venables, we got some questions about what he'll be facing next week at Media Days as we continue our preview right here on the Postgame Show. as we said to you a few minutes ago, it's a hot one out there. Is your system keeping you cool and comfortable? Are you worried about it? Do you know when you've last had it even looked at? Does it just not kick out the cold air the way you want? Or is it costing you way too much money with the power bill? Now is a great time to upgrade to a brand new system with AAA Heating and Air, and Roy and Dana Finley are giving you an excellent reason to do so. In fact, multiple reasons. First off, no payments or interest for 12 months if you buy in 2024. Secondly, a $1,500 old system buyback, a rebate, $1,500, boom, right there. A 15-year parts and labor guarantee, and they're going to back it up for you with the best service in the Midlands, in my personal opinion. They've done work at my house. Love what they've done for me. Keep it nice and cool or warm, whatever it is. Call AAAtoday.com. Get a free estimate, 803-677-1500. Tell them we sent you to AAA Heating and Air.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We're going to start with a couple on Clemson Road. One's over near Hardscrabble Road, and one's on Old Clemson Road. So everywhere on Clemson Road is moving very slowly at the moment. We also have an accident on Killian Road at I-77, Lower Richland Boulevard at Highway 48 and Bluff Road, and on Pickens Street at Gervais Street. In Lexington County, we have two, one on 26 West just before I-20 and exit 107B, and one on Bower Parkway at Harbison Boulevard.
Talking some college football as we preview SEC Media Days, which take place next week in Dallas. We'll be there. Terry in the halftime show. Elijah and I will be doing the postgame show. We'll be running around, grabbing sound. And
in the flesh.
People. And that's right.
ITF.
At least clothed.
Yes.
But we will be there.
Greg Sankey might not if he's so excited about the future.
With your traffic report, by the way, shocked, I tell you, to hear that Clemson Road has a lot of traffic on it.
Yeah, two accidents on it.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
And if I could open this window behind me, which I can't, I could look out and see what's going on at Gervais and Pickens because it's right there.
It's right behind us.
Right there.
Right behind you, right in front of me.
Yeah, right over there. Hopefully everybody's okay.
Hope so.
Yeah, I say this. My daughter lives on Pickens. I hope it's not her.
Yeah.
Please.
Fingers crossed. I'm going to send her a text.
Yeah, I probably should. That's not you, is it?
Say, hey, wellness check. Just like this message if you're still alive.
So Oklahoma is joining the Southeastern Conference, and Bill Simmons, ESPN, says projected wins 7.5 and 3.6 in conference.
There's a Bill Simmons at ESPN now?
Or not Bill Simmons. What's his name?
Are you thinking Conley?
Bill Conley.
There
sorry.
you go. Okay. I was like, wait a minute.
I knew it was Bill.
There's a Bill Simmons at ESPN?
No, I knew it was Bill. I'm sorry. I knew who
from the dead.
I knew who I was talking about. But Bill Conley, SP+, thinks they're the 15th best team in the country, but has them basically being a losing conference team at 3.6. That's I know you can't actually win 3.6 games.
Not with that attitude.
Yeah, but I don't know. Are they ready for the SEC? I contend they are because of who they are and what they do. Maybe I'm fooling myself. Again, Bill Gunner does not necessarily. I think he might be more like where Bill Conley is here. Mm-hmm. Maybe more like an 8-win team. I just see Oklahoma as a 10-win team on a regular basis. I know it's harder to do that, more than likely, in the Southeastern Conference relative to the old Big 8 or Big 12, which Oklahoma dominated. Texas did not. I want to make that abundantly clear. What did Bob Stoops win, like 12 conference titles or something?
What Bill Self was doing at Kansas in hoops, Bob Stoops was doing.
Yeah, I mean that's what that program is used to. Now, again, coming into this conference, it's going to be a little bit different. I understand that, but it isn't going to be lost on anybody out there. Oh, is that a good conference? I didn't know that. So I don't see it the same as others do. Look, players got to go get it done, but Brent Venables, out there a long time, at Clemson a long time. I know neither one of those are the SEC, but I think he saw enough around here, going up against Carolina all the time, going up against Georgia a lot, going up against others, Bama in bowl games and things like that. To know, I got to go get more good players, and I gotta coach them up even harder than we might have done before.
Yeah, Oklahoma's a weird team for me because there are some things I really like about this team. I have a big question on both sides of the ball, and on offense, can Jackson Arnold, who already has a team around him of playmakers that can really play right now. Gavin Sawchuk might end up being a second, third team All-SEC caliber player. They got 2 receivers on this team right now that have been incredibly productive for their entire careers. They have 3 guys last year. Deion Burks was from another school, but Nick Anderson and Jalil Farouk all had at least 600 yards receiving. They're competent. They're productive. He's got a good surrounding cast. Can he get them the ball without turning the ball over? Because in the bowl game, he did throw 3 interceptions, but he did throw 2 touchdowns and did sling it a little bit and did look really good. What Jackson Arnold are you getting on a weekly basis? That's a huge question mark.
Oklahoma also has a pretty favorable early season schedule. Maybe not quite as favorable as Missouri.
Murray State.
But you start with Temple at home with Houston, former conference mate.
For a year.
Home with Tulane. And then your first conference game is home against Tennessee. So,
who I think they're comparable with. I think there's a pretty good grouping in the middle of the conference. I think Oklahoma's very middle class in the SEC.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Tennessee in just a few. But I look at those and I say that when they go to Auburn on September 28th, they'll be 4-0.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see them.
I do. Listen.
That 4-0.
I suppose there's 2 ways to answer a question of are you ready for the Southeastern Conference. One is the program and how it operates and where you are, dare I say, like a golf term between the ears. And in that respect, Oklahoma is absolutely prepared for life in the Southeastern Conference. They are one of those programs. Again, I will say, and you will hear me say this a bunch, they are a lot like Alabama. That's who they are. They punch above their demographic weight, if that makes sense. This is not Ohio State. This is not Texas. This is not Florida. In terms of either a big state or the only school in, again, they're in a smaller population state, relatively speaking. Yes, there's some money there, no doubt. But they go down into Texas and they do quite well. And they always have. And I say always because Oklahoma has been the dominant team in that region my whole lifetime and probably before that.
Decades. Yeah, there's not really a bad decade.
No. I mean,
90s,
the mid-'90s was a really weird time for them. And how that happened, I'm still not sure that they had that much time where they weren't very good.
But bounced back immediately.
But it was only like 4 or 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they got it all back together, and it's been pretty much fine ever since. A couple of exceptions, but it happens sometimes. It's sports after all. But they're more than prepared for that. Are you prepared from a talent perspective? That might be the bigger question. And you just pointed some of those things out. If you can answer some of those questions, that's fine. But I think those are the questions that Brent will get more than anything else is, are you ready for the Southeastern Conference?
And can you get your defense to what Brent Venables' defenses looked like? I mean, let's not forget the reason that Brent Venables was hired to be Oklahoma was so he could be, a defensive mind and be able to get that defense to what he had it at Clemson, which was many years of like averaging 13 points per game against for the longest time. Those Clemson defenses and those championship teams were dominant defenses. And for the longest time, Brent Venables, rightly so, considered the best defensive mind in the sport. And then in his last 2 years, he starts off giving up 30 points per game in the first year and then 23.5 last season, got gashed on the ground for both seasons, almost gave up over 4 yards per carry in both. Collectively, if you combine both seasons together, he did give up more than 4 yards per carry. You can't do that in this league. There are too many teams that are good on the ground. There are too many teams that can beat you through the air, especially on this schedule, because you do play Alabama, you do play Missouri, you do play Ole Miss, you do play Texas, you do play Tennessee, who has a high ceiling for what their offense could be. We'll see what they are on September 21st. But it's a Josh Heupel offense. That's 5 games right there, where if defensively you can't stop anybody through the air or on the ground, you can be 7-5.
Yeah,
pretty easily. That's my big thing with defense and Brent Venables specifically. The defense did improve from last year and the year before, about a touchdown difference. But that number cannot be 23.5 if you have aspirations of playing in Atlanta.
Well, again, I think they'll beat Temple, Houston, and Tulane. If they lose to any of those teams, it's because Oklahoma did it wrong. I think they'll beat Tennessee because the game's in Norman. I think they'll beat Auburn at Jordan-Hare, and that puts you at 5-0 going to Dallas for the Red River game. Then you've got South Carolina at home the week after Texas. That could be interesting if you're could.
Hangover game potential is absolutely
and where Carolina falls, it's the week prior to their trip to Oxford, so that's interesting.
And Ole Miss will be coming off a bye.
Then they've got Maine after a bye, right?
Out.
No, that's
Black
not.
Bears.
Yeah, no, that's actually they don't have a bye there. Then they go to Missouri, home with Alabama, and then they go to LSU. That's a much more difficult schedule than what Missouri's got in front of them.
Definitely, by far. Yeah. That latter stretch is really tough. And like ending the season against Alabama and LSU is quite the welcome to the SEC, pals. Right. Yeah, you get Alabama.
Yeah, I mean,
home,
Carolina fans, you think you get it rough, and not that's rough.
That's not how you're ending the season.
That's rough.
Last 4 conference games: Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, LSU. There's a really good chance they start off red hot, right? 6-1, 7-1, something like that, and end up 7-5 and 8-4.
Could be.
That's a real possibility.
Could be. But I can also see them going to Mississippi and Missouri and pulling it off. And if you split with Bama and LSU.
That's the strange thing about this team. Because if Jackson Arnold is great right off the bat in his first full season as a starter, 9-3, 10-2 is realistic because that's what this offense can be. Because there's just a lot of talent at the skill positions.
To answer the rhetorical question, are you ready for the SEC? The program is ready for the SEC. Is the team this year? That's going to be the question. We'll talk about the other UT coming up. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. We're into stoppage time. Spain still leads France 2-1. Semifinal of the European Championship. Winner into the title game on Sunday. England and Holland tomorrow at this time. Talking SEC Media Day previews. Tennessee, the fourth team that we will discuss today. Again, Georgia, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee on the docket next Tuesday in Dallas. My question to Josh Heupel, what's your next step? You seem to have not necessarily plateaued, but maybe stalled a little bit. You've got to now really crack through. I saw a Knoxville reporter today, and I said it was an odd flex, talk about how Tennessee has a couple of 1,000-yard receivers and Georgia never has. And I was like, dude. Josh Heupel has had his butt kicked 3 times against Georgia. Like, don't make that comparison just yet. What do you do to crack through? More good players is going to be, I think, number one on the list. But can Tennessee and Josh Heupel really crack through that right now? That'll be my thing. What is your next step? Is it a scheme change? Is it a scheme tweak? Or is it simply, again, go recruit at a higher level?
See, I see what you're saying with in regards to the tweet about it being an odd flex, because it's very specific, but that's what this team's identity is. And if I'm a wide receiver, yeah, you can go win at Georgia, but if I'm not getting over 1,000 yards, like I want to do what Jalen Hyatt did, right? Or Cedric Tillman, or be able to be a draft pick in the NFL. Any good advice I'd give to any player is go where you're going to play and play a lot and get featured. And that's what this team needs to do. That's my biggest question with this group is I think Nico Iamaleava is going to be a really solid quarterback. He's got a lot of like the physical tools. He didn't necessarily play well in the garbage time that he had, but he's a year older. He's put on a little bit of muscle. The thing with last year's team that was underwhelming was not just Joe Milton. I thought Joe Milton wasn't very good at all, but that wide receiver group was very underwhelming, especially after Brew McCoy went down. Deontay Thornton wasn't very good. Squirrel White ended up being the leading receiver, and that was not the plan going into 2023. But they did pick up, a couple of really big names one big name in the portal, and that's Chris Brazzell from Tulane, who as a true freshman led them in receiving yards, almost having a 1,000-yard season. And they got Mike Matthews, who, depending on the website you go to, was the number 1 receiver coming out of high school. They're going to be asked to step in and be able to give you a lot right away. How ready are those guys as route runners? How athletic are they compared to defensive backs in the SEC? And at the same time, Brew McCoy, who's going to be healthier, and Squirrel White coming in are going to have to be insanely productive. They got a couple tight ends who are relatively productive from the transfer portal, one from Notre Dame, but the offense is going to have to step it up because this team is predicated on playing a bleep ton of plays in a short amount of time. Right. And in order to do that, if you don't do it efficiently, then you have the drop-off like they did. I mean, that was a 15-point per game difference between 2022 and 2023. They would not survive that type of drop-off this year. You got to get that closer to 40 with the amount of plays that you play. You got to be way, way more efficient. They're going to have a good ground game because they have good run blockers, and Dylan Sampson coming back is a huge, huge plus. But this team is absolutely going to have to get a lot more out of their receivers if they want to have that vertical passing game, which made them immensely successful in 2022.
Tennessee starts with Chattanooga, and then they've got
Terrell Owens's.
Then they've got NC State and Charlotte, which is an interesting week 2, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because NC State has Grayson McCall at quarterback. Yeah. One of the biggest questions in the entire conference in the ACC is how well does Grayson McCall's game translate to the Power 4 level and doing it in a much different offense. I think what Dave Doran's going to ask him to do is going to be a little different than what he did at Coastal Carolina when he was the Sun Belt Player of the Year for 3 straight years.
Yeah. That's an interesting game. Then they've got Kent. Then they go to Oklahoma, go to Arkansas, host Florida, host Bama, host Kentucky, host Mississippi State. That's a really fortuitous home stretch of conference games.
And they got a couple teams in there with, like, Kentucky.
Not quite sure how the conference office allowed that to happen, by the way.
Yeah.
4 straight conference games like that. But they did, so whatever. But then they go to Georgia, then UTEP, and Vanderbilt. So like a lot of years, Tennessee typically can kind of skate into the last couple of games.
Because it always used to be Kentucky, Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Kentucky could be good this year, though.
Well, they could, but they get them at home at least, and they get Florida, Bama, Kentucky, Mississippi State. If you're Tennessee, you better expect to go no worse than 3-1 in that home stretch.
Oh, have to. That's pivotal. That's the game. Like, you can't lose the game. In this conference, if you're favored in games, you're going to have to take care of business and win those, just because there are so many, obviously, good teams at the top, but the middle class of the SEC is really good.
Yeah.
And Tennessee and Oklahoma, I would say, are incredibly even. That game is going to be pivotal for both. If Oklahoma wins that game and goes into Red River undefeated, we can see a very interesting Oklahoma team going into that disastrous, potentially last 4-game stretch. If you're Tennessee and you're able to pull that off at Oklahoma, then you can have honest expectations of finishing the year in the top 15 and flirting with a playoff spot.
Was it Trent Dilfer who said you can't lose in the NFL and win? Wasn't that him?
It's one of those guys on the ESPN show, but it might have been him. It might have been Trent Dilfer or Ron Jaworski.
One of somebody.
I think it might have been Jaws.
That was one of those great moments.
He's true.
Headlines of the day. More on the Gamecocks and the drive around the SEC coming up.
No lies detected.
A lot of us love our home, but know it needs a little TLC. You're not looking for that new place, and you've been around a while. Well, that means you might have some equity in your home. And if you do, then Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union invites you to apply for a home equity line of credit. Unlock your home's equity. Do it with lower closing costs and application fees than with the big banks. And then access that line of credit over a 10-year draw period. Sometimes if you get a home equity loan, you're borrowing one big sum. You're like, oh, well, I didn't need all that. Do I just give it all back? How do no, instead, just as you need a project. Maybe it's time to expand the kid's bathroom, or, maybe you and the wife would like a really nice master suite. Maybe you want to put a pool out back or a new deck. Maybe the kids need a little playroom to just, let all the energy out. Whatever it is, Palmetto Citizens Home Equity Line of Credit, ready to help you out. Learn more about how you can save money on this. Apply today. PalmettoCitizens.org, or visit any of their 14 convenient Midlands locations. Join my wife and me as members of Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a couple of accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways here in the Midlands. We'll start with the only one that's still active and actively causing some traffic backup in Richland County. And that's the one on Killian Road at I-77. All the others appear to have been cleared. Lastly, we have two accidents, both still in Lexington County. one on I-26 westbound just a little before the I-20 exit 107B. And lastly, we have one on Bauer Parkway that's going to be around Harbison Boulevard.
It is 5 o'clock news time. It's also the final hour of the post-game show on this Tuesday. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you for being with us. We start with some Gamecock football news. Earlier today, Shane Beamer officially announced that Darren Usher will become South Carolina football's new director of player personnel and recruiting. Usher is a Carolina graduate, finished in 2009, then got a master's degree at Georgetown up in D.C. He most recently was on staff with the Oregon Ducks. Last year, of course, Oregon reached the Pac-12 title game, losing a thriller to Washington. Usher was part of a group that helped construct the big-time recruiting class that has been ranked as high as third in the country. He was also part of Chip Kelly's staff for just a bit at UCLA, but once Chip moved on, then Darren went back to Eugene. He also worked for several seasons at Auburn as director of recruiting, and he was at Boise State, where he was also a personnel director and recruiting, or football operations director, and recruiting coordinator for 2 years before he was promoted to director of recruiting and player personnel. He's also worked at Carolina in the marketing department with Eric Nichols and that crew when he was in school, and again has his master's degree in sports industry management at Georgetown. So this is a big pickup. We talked to our buddy Brad Crawford a little bit earlier. This was sort of a surprise hire, but one that Shane feels very good about in terms of, not only the resume, which I think is the most important here. I think it's, dare I say, Elijah, kind of that icing on the cake mentality that Darren Usher went to the University of South Carolina. But in his statement, he mentioned about how excited he was to be coming back to Columbia, that he had been looking for that opportunity if it came along, and timing is everything. But the need was there after a change in that position for a variety of reasons. And now here he is, Darren Usher, back. But at a time when you've been working with Dan Lanning and you know what talent acquisition is all about, and I say a bunch, whether it's in jest or not. There's 10 things that matter in college football, and 7 of them are recruiting.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. That's true.
So
his position being basically turned into a GM spot.
Basically.
I know the coach is a de facto GM because ultimately they greenlight a lot of things, but they can't scout everything, prepare for games, and a whole lot of that they need to lean on people to basically be de facto shadow GMs, and that's why this is such an important role. And losing that in July, this close to the season, is pretty abrupt. And to be able to get somebody with that track record who's got a pretty solid history so far, as young as he is, and has ties to the school. You can't spell Usher without USC.
Oh, I like what you did there.
Yeah, like that. So it fits. This is about as good as you could do in terms of replacing the shadow GM role for a Power 4 conference team in July.
So he's also interned with the Commanders and DC United. Again, he's a DC area guy. Came down to, as I said, to college at Carolina, and then got a master's at Georgetown, where he also worked in their athletic department with their football program.
The Hoyas.
While he was getting a master's. Yes, Georgetown plays football just at, I think, D2 level.
I think they're FCS.
Are they FCS?
Yeah, I think they're FCS. Yeah, Pat Ewing ain't walking through that door.
No, but that's okay.
It'd have to be a big door.
Yes, it would be a big door for him and for Dikembe and Zoe.
That's right.
They had some big dudes. You know who would have been the best football player in Georgetown history is AI.
Yeah. Well, he was one of the best high school football players in Virginia history.
He might have been, he could have been.
Newport News legend.
He could have been something.
His tape is fantastic.
Dude, he really could have. He chose basketball because he loved John Thompson, but everybody says he could have been just as good a football player.
He could have been what Lamar Jackson is.
Could have been. That'd have been something.
Tape. You get a chance, YouTube it, kids.
Yeah, but welcome aboard Darren Usher, the new director of player personnel and recruiting at the University of South Carolina. To the Big 12 we go now. The Big 12, by the way, says that the reason they have their media days today and tomorrow in Vegas is because there is a renovation going on at Jerry World. I just say it's because the SEC is there.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah, pretty much a renovation going on at Jerry World. Or an excuse to go to Vegas. You think Brett Yormark's a big Vegas guy?
I don't know. Again, it
seems like a wild, crazy dude.
It'd be dangerous to have SEC media. Maybe that's why the Big 12 only has 2, even though they have 16 schools to cover. They only have 2 days at their event.
Talk about really cramming it. And then that's what, they say Las Vegas is a 48-hour town. You know what? I concur. You ever been in Vegas longer than 2 days?
I was in Vegas 4 nights, 5 days.
Bold. You know what the best thing to do on day 3 of a Vegas trip?
Tell me.
Leave. That's my advice.
Yeah, I had fun. That's the only time I've been. It was a long time ago.
48-hour town.
Might need to head back at some point. But Big 12 Media Days is going on in Vegas. And I find this interesting. Brett Yormark, again, is doing a fine job. He is. I'm not picking at all here. I'm saying some of these things in jest. But in terms of how hard he has worked to not only stabilize this league, but grow it and strengthen it as best you can in a relative sense in losing Oklahoma and Texas. He's done a fine job.
He's swimming, not sinking.
Last year, Big 12 sponsorship went up 79% in terms of dollars invested. Ticket revenue up 23%. They have just partnered with Microsoft for sideline tablets, so they're getting cash and equipment from Microsoft. They are working on an ad-supported streaming channel, like a Big 12 channel. It'll be ad-supported, so it'll be free. So you don't have to subscribe.
These are Tubi of conference channel networks.
Perhaps. Pluto TV, Tubi, sure, why not?
Tubi's got some bangers on there, too.
Those Tubi commercials are great, by the way.
Hilarious.
There were only 4 million babies born last year, but 75 million people watch Tubi. Tubi, more popular than babies. I thought it was. I laughed so hard. They had that little baby standing on that piano. It is a fact. Yeah. But today, Yormark said, I often refer to our league as a mature startup. This means our brand can be younger, more progressive, and innovative compared to some of our peers. How would you read between those lines? Is he taking a shot at the old men that are the Big Ten and the Southeastern Conference? Or maybe the confused Atlantic Coast Conference?
I think maybe the confused Atlantic Coast Conference. That is how I would read that. Just because they're trying everything they can to, and not well, to avoid becoming the Pac-12. The Big 12 is very proactive, thinking outside the box. They're clearly active in trying to bring in more revenue and trying to make their conference as competitive as they can to the Big Ten and the SEC.
One of the things they're looking at is, naming rights. We've already talked about that. They've had conversations with Allstate Insurance, amongst others. They are also, according to what Yormark said today, pushing for uniform patches on referee jerseys with a blessing from Big 12 officials. The NBA has done that. I know the Premier League in England does that. I think EA Sports sponsors the ref jerseys. Nice. Listen, I got zero issue with that kind of thing. Zero. In fact, not only do I have zero issue, I would, yes, do it. I promote that. I advocate for that.
An orbit patch for the foul mouth responses those referees get in some games.
Whatever
commercial in itself.
Whatever it takes, man. I mean, heck, if you want to put a patch on the back of their hat and on their shoulder, I don't care. Or on their sleeve, I guess it is, not shoulder, but you know what I mean. But And I do
I'm
that.
This close to advocating getting them calf tattoos.
I do if they want to do it, man. But look, these are smart things, and I don't. That's one of the questions that I think maybe Greg Sankey gets next week. Hey, the Big 12 is thinking about this. Are you thinking about this? Or even just in a general sense of what would you think of sponsorship patches on the refs' jersey or on your players' jerseys or your players' helmets? There's nothing. Listen, I know some of you just get nauseous over that. And I appreciate the fact that you want the tradition to remain the way it was. But I'm just here to tell you, you're in a new era. Period. End of story. And the need for new revenue streams is only going to increase. It's not going to decrease. NIL is not going away. You got to pay off this settlement. This doesn't end all of the potential lawsuits against you, by the way.
Yeah, there's still more.
So, these are innovative things. And that's why I said I thought the Big 12 a couple of weeks ago, maybe the way they were talking about like potentially going out and getting Allstate as a sponsor, as an example, that they were thinking, oh, watch this. We'll pull a fast one here. Nobody will know we're doing this. And all of a sudden we'll have Allstate as our sponsor. And it'll be like, you're not operating in a vacuum. If it's successful for you, then the Big Ten and the Southeastern Conference and potentially the Atlantic Coast Conference will. And if I'm the Atlantic Coast Conference, I'm all over this. Like yesterday. You better be, man.
Or do something different than what you're doing now, because what you're doing now isn't good enough.
Well, they're just standing back and Jim Phillips is just standing back and letting it happen.
Also, when we said this plenty of times, your conference is only good as the proactiveness of your member schools.
Yeah.
Somebody else in that conference as the school's got to say, instead of, crying and complaining about we're not making enough on our TV deal, Clemson and Florida State could easily be like, hey, here's a solution. Here's what these guys are doing. Why don't we consider doing this? Here's a way to get extra revenue. The ACC is just the collection of the schools in it.
Right.
And you have two that are
conference is the schools,
that are crying and moaning and wanting to get out because they're so upset.
Right.
You can be proactive and do something about this instead of trying to sue the conference.
Yeah, no, again, Clemson, Florida State, we talked about, that the NCAA has allowed schools, should they choose, to put sponsorship logos on the field. Do it. Do it. Yeah, I wouldn't advocate for them at the 50, even though they allowed for that. I would say do it like where the conference logos are.
I'd be bummed out. Would get it.
I don't like, again, if that's what you choose, man, okay.
What's your vote?
Because you can. But again, Clemson, Florida State, tell the ACC we're going to put patches on our uniforms. And people are going to pay us for that, not you, and then you funnel it to us. Do it. Do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that because, you're looking at some of what the Big 12 is doing. That's where Brett Yormark is right now.
You want more money, we have options for you to get more money.
And he, basically said, I think we're, now the deepest in college football in terms of teams. He's right in one sense. Now, he also said, I think we'll be well represented at the college football playoff. That I have a little more concern for. Because to do that with great regularity, you sort of need to be top heavy and bottom light. And I don't know that that's what we're looking at. And I ask this somewhat rhetorically, Elijah, because I haven't really done a deep dive into, like 1 through 16 picks. And we'll see that tomorrow, I guess, when Big 12 Media Day concludes. Who's the worst team in that conference right now? Like, I don't know.
Arizona State. Yeah, I think I think Arizona State. Yeah, I think they did release it.
Okay.
I think I saw it on 3 the other day, but Arizona State, pretty rough.
Okay.
Slow build.
Okay. And that's still a big state U.
It is. With the potential of getting better, I like their coach. I think Kenny Dillingham can be a really good coach one day. I think there's a lot of potential. Herm Edwards just left him with like a couple of sticks, some rocks, a couple footballs, like 2, a couple of helmets.
We'll have more on Big 12 Media Days on tomorrow's program as well when it concludes. Plus, Dion goes tomorrow, so that's really what everybody's waiting for.
Yeah, that's where the majority. That's why they put him in day 2.
Yes,
he's the headliner.
Atlanta Braves won in 11 innings last night out in Phoenix by a count of 5-4. Eddie Rosario called up to the big club after a weekend in Gwinnett where he hit a homer and a triple. And left his clothes on. If Elijah wants to make a joke now about the Gwinnett strippers.
Only a letter away from it getting really erotic in that stadium.
Yeah, Braves go at it again tonight. Chris Sale was bumped from the start last night. He'll start tonight for Atlanta, at least according to the latest that I saw. And finally, European Championships semifinal just concluded. First of two semifinals. Spain edges France in a game, as Elijah and I said, is kind of like Georgia playing Ohio State. And pick which one you want as to which one is which. It really doesn't matter.
Interchangeable.
Yeah,
they both win a lot of Euros. They win World Cups.
It really doesn't matter. But Spain wins it 2-1 tomorrow. England and the Netherlands. The winner will get Spain on Sunday afternoon. That is our headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. Get ahead of the football rush now if you're ready for that new home entertainment system. 803-948-8327 is the number to call for my good friends at Integrated Media. Talk to Brad Crawford at 24/7 Sports about the Gamecocks and more. We'll hear some of that coming up. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Elijah and I had a chance earlier to speak with our buddy Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports, a national college football analyst, but also spends a lot of time covering the Gamecocks. And we get into a lot of things with Brad, starting off with his thoughts on Shane Beamer earlier today, announcing the hire of new personnel director Darren Usher.
I think moving forward for South Carolina's recruiting arm, obviously what means the most is, how much money boosters pour into NIL. I think this hire has much to do with that, kind of earmarking funds for certain positions. And as I've spoken, man, to many SEC staffers in that player personnel role, I mean, we're almost looking at like salary caps nowadays, where when you get guys in the portal, or you're looking at 4- and 5-star high school recruits, you have to sort of earmark contracts and certain money for certain positions: offensive line, edge, wide receiver, quarterback, obviously being the big four. So I think it's a great hire moving forward. He's obviously going to help Shane, find some guys that might be off South Carolina's radar nationally. He already has a proven pipeline to the DMV area. The Gamecocks recruit that area very well already. So he's a Gamecock grad and somebody who really wants to be in Columbia. And anytime you pull a staffer from Oregon, what I consider a top 5 program, pretty dang good.
Yeah, agreed with you 100%. Brad has a piece out this week at 247sports.com, and for those of you locally at thebigspur.com, with 5 bold and 5 conservative predictions for Carolina football. And I want to start you with one that I get you called bold, but I think it is just crucial regardless, and that is that South Carolina, a bold prediction, will produce an all-SEC linebacker. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but regardless, Brad, that's a position that must get better and seemingly has for Shane going into this year.
Yeah, it feels like it's been forever, really almost 2 coaching cycles since the Gamecocks have had a true difference maker at that position. Sky Moore, I mean, he was a guy that led the team in interceptions at that one season as an all-SEC player. But I think right now this is the deepest linebacker room South Carolina's had, certainly under Shane Beamer, possibly under the previous regime as well. I mean, Bam Martin-Scott's a guy who is going to take a major leap this season into that starting role. Debo Williams obviously is one of the SEC's hardest hitters and has shown flashes in recent years. But the 2 guys I'm looking at, man, are Demetrius Knight, transfer from Georgia Tech, who, Nick Emenwari has said on social media and various times this offseason that, Demetrius Knight's a guy who is going to be quite impactful at that position. And then Bengali Kamara, a linebacker from Pitt who's been uber productive in the ACC previously. So Gamecocks go about 4 deep at that position, feel really good about it. And I think, Shane Beamer may not have felt that way 5 or 6 months ago when he lost 2 linebackers to the portal, but the 2 guys he replaced them with are pretty darn talented players. And I think it's a position group that is no longer a weakness in Columbia.
Brad, I want to turn the attention now to the offensive side of the ball. One of your conservative predictions was that Lenora Sellers is going to fall short of 3,000 yards. And a lot of what you alluded to is how they're going to run the offense. They have a loaded running back room. Lenoris has a different skill set than what Spencer Rattler has. And I've maintained that probably one of the most important people in that football building is Dow Loggins, because he's tasked with really making a new offense to cater towards Lenoris' skill set. How do you see that looking on the field in terms of differences in how the offensive looks schematically this year from last year?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more zone read and option-type plays out of this offense. I think for the most part last season and the year before that with Marcus Satterfield, South Carolina tried to keep Spencer Rattler upright as much as possible. He didn't run the ball much. There certainly was not a ton of quarterback design runs. That's going to change a good bit with Lenora Sellers and Robbie Ashford, the Auburn transfer, behind him. I think this offensive staff is going to do whatever it can to keep Lenora Sellers healthy. However, this guy's big, man. He's almost 6'5", 250 pounds. He's going to be able to take a hit, and he's somebody who I think can get 10 to 12 carries a game. Obviously, the backfield is brand new with 3 transfers there. So, South Carolina's going to enter that season opener next month against Old Dominion with, 3 ball carriers that it feels really good about, and a quarterback making his first career start that is a true dual threat, probably the first, the Gamecocks have had in several seasons. So I think he's going to fall short of 3,000 yards passing because I don't think that's the recipe for success for this Gamecock offense. I think you're going to see more balance, maybe 60-40 run pass. And, if these 3 transfers are as good as advertised in the backfield, this running game should be light years better than it has been in recent years.
Talking to Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports National College Football Analyst, has a piece out on the Gamecocks. All right, so we just gave you 2 of the 10 predictions that you made. So let me put you on the spot, but you can handle it. Of the other 8, or maybe it's one of the 2 that we gave you, which one of these, as you were writing this, might have surprised you the most that this is what you published?
Yeah, Gamecocks getting a bowl invite, man. To be honest with you, for the last 5 or 6 months, I go through every SEC schedule. I predict these wins, losses for every team. I've hit South Carolina a lot in my career these last, decade plus. But I didn't feel good about Gamecocks bowl chances until, speaking to a few other staffers here recently. They really feel confident, man, inside that locker room that they can start September hot, possibly win that road game at Kentucky. And Jay, I've been saying all summer, man, that's the most important game of the year, and it's only week 2 for South Carolina.
Right.
I mean, you start off 1-0, then all of a sudden the LSU game, while it's a winnable game, it's not a must-win. But you start 0-1 in Lexington, you come back home to Williams-Brice, you have to be LSU because it's going to be very hard to, pull out of an 0-2 SEC hole and still get to 6 wins.
Yeah, Elijah and I called it the most pivotal game in week 2 that we can remember. So we're certainly there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons why I think this team can be bowl eligible and can beat Kentucky is because one group of the ball that you don't really have to worry about too much is defense. And one of your picks on here, too, or one of your predictions was Clayton White keeping his job. With all the players coming back, you already hit on that linebacker room, which is absolutely loaded. But you have a really good defensive front. You mentioned how good Tonka Hemingway can be this year. The secondary brings back a lot of production. How good do you think this team or this defense will be relative to the rest of the conference?
Yeah, I feel considerably more confident on the defensive side of the ball than I do offensive as far as, Gamecocks defense can finish in that top 8, the mid to top tier of the SEC on that side. Clayton White obviously, struggled the first 6 or 7 weeks last season, and then he found something in mid-October. I think a lot of it was the schedule lightened up a bit, but putting that 5th defensive back on the field seemed to really help this defense. The Gamecocks were flying around, something they didn't do the first half of the 2023 slate. And like you said, there's a ton of starters back. They've added those 2 quality linebackers from the portal. Tonka Hemingway's a guy that, I spoke to a NFL draft analyst a couple weeks ago, and he thinks Tonka Hemingway is someone who can creep into that, late first-round range if he has a good final season. And then, of course, there's Dylan Stewart. Clayton White did not have a 5-star talented edge rusher that he could just throw out there, 15 to 20 snaps a game last season. Now he has that. I don't think he has to lean on Dylan Stewart to be a superstar. But, I mean, watching that kid in the spring game, he's somebody the Gamecocks can use and use immediately on that side of the ball.
The new D. Good stuff from our buddy Brad Crawford. Again, the entire interview, I imagine, already up, yes, on the podcast page.
You'd be correct.
Look at that. 1075thegame.com or
Before
on
this
the
hour
app.
Even started. It was already up.
You can get the app at the App Store or the Google Play Store, if that's what it's still called, or wherever you get your apps.
Black market, whatever.
I don't care how you get it. Well, I do care. I don't want you to do it illegally. But considering that it's free.
You can't steal something that's free. Like SpongeBob on Free Balloon Day.
And if somebody is charging you for our app, do me a favor and let me know how much you paid, because I'm going to start doing that too.
And then also call the police, because that's not our app.
Right. Yes.
You've been duped.
Anyway, we appreciate Brad's time. We'll get into the drive around the SEC, and if Elijah can convince me, we might get, and now that I've teased it, we might get to a comment that we just got online about something that we talked about.
We'll get to it.
Okay, we'll get to it.
You've talked me into it.
Just for a second, though.
USOB, I'm in.
Just for a second. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you today that are causing some issues on the roadways. We're going to start off with some good news. That's that the accident in Lexington County on 26 West, just before the I-20 exit 107B, has been cleared. So traffic moving a whole lot smoothly through there. Still have one in Lexington County, though. It's causing some issues. That's over on Highway 1 at Augusta Road and Columbia Avenue. We have one more to get to. That's in Richland County, and that accident's on I-77 over at US 21 near exit 24.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Tuesday afternoon. We've spent a lot of time talking about what's going on around the SEC today as we've been continuing to preview SEC Media Days, which will come at you from Dallas next Monday through Thursday. We will be there live with both of our afternoon shows, the halftime show and this particular program, the post-game show. Looking forward to that. Our buddy Langston Moore is going to join us. He makes his home in the Dallas Metroplex, and he is going to be hanging with us for the run of Media Days as well. Looking forward to having Langston as part of what we do all next week. And thanks again to Forest Lake Travel for sending us out for all your football travel needs, forestlake.travel.com.
That's right.
Daisy and the crew know what's up.
Daisy's number one.
She's a big sports fan, too, so she'll talk some sports with you while you're booking your flight or whatever else you want to do. So we appreciate them and all our fine sponsors. One quick note, Carolina baseball. Tennessee baseball announced today that Hunter Ensley will be coming back for a redshirt senior season next year. 141 games in his career at UT. 284 batting average, 19 homers, 79 driven in, 10 stolen bases, and a pretty good outfielder. He is from Huntington, Tennessee. I don't know where that is.
That's in West Tennessee. So that is about in between Jackson and Memphis.
Okay. I know where Memphis is, and I know where Jackson is. So if they're in between, then I can figure that out.
It is in that area.
Okay. And again, Jackson's a pretty good-sized town, right?
Yeah,
like Florence?
Relatively. That's a perfect comparison.
Yeah.
It's just like Florence in terms of population and the size of the town. They have a decent downtown area. Driven through Jackson many a time. Rarely have stayed for any length of time.
Had some friends who their dad was a doctor, and I think maybe in his early days did some time in Jackson. And then they moved here.
Good minor league ballpark.
They had a double-A team for a while, right? Maybe still do?
I don't know if they're still double-A, but they're definitely not the Jacks anymore. They used to be the West Tennessee Jacks. I don't even know what the hell they're called now. But it's a nice little park right off the interstate.
Yeah. I'll take your word for it. Never been out that way. I need to go to Memphis one day.
For being honest.
They need to have SEC Media Days in Memphis.
I do like hanging out in Memphis.
I've never been. I'd like to go.
Get sold that.
Again, I'm looking forward to checking off Dallas next week.
Best barbecue I've ever had in my life in Memphis.
In Memphis?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Man, I don't know where the best barbecue is. I'd have to stop and think. I wouldn't want to answer like today even. I wouldn't even want to say.
Yeah, take some time. Yeah.
Yeah, there's too much good barbecue and just in eastern South Carolina alone. I don't know, man. That's tough.
If you ever go to Memphis. That's what to do.
I partially hesitate to do this, but I know it's a real thing, and everybody can have very emotional opinions on it. I have asked questions about potential Southeastern Conference expansion for years. I can tell you, and Elijah knows who I've spoken with about this, when I hear people say, well, nobody knows because it's all just a guess, I have asked off the record. But again, Elijah knows who I've spoken to. Our boss knows who I've spoken to. What would you be looking at if it were to happen? And the basic answer I got was new markets. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but we got a hit from somebody. Mm-hmm. And again, I appreciate that people get passionate about this in their school. And this is clearly from a Clemson fan.
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, maybe not, but it feels, for what you read me, it feels like it's.
My guy Harry might be a Clemson fan.
Tinged with that. I don't know.
This is our friend Harry. Harry chimes in and says Clemson will be in the SEC very, very soon. And we asked why you think so. And to Harry's credit, he gave out a few texts here as to why. He said because they did not do what they are doing without already knowing they had a spot. And they're not going to the Big Ten. And they said sometime between this coming Friday and the start of the football season, it will all come out. Too much is made around here about the geographic footprint and TV markets. Clemson averages 4.2 million viewers every time they are on TV. I may end up being wrong, but I doubt it. Way too much smoke out there. And then concludes with ESPN is going to be instrumental in brokering a deal that will likely send Clemson and to the SEC and FSU to the Big Ten. End of chain.
All right. The last part I'll take first. No, that's not how this works. Disney is very powerful, but Disney is not going to pull the presidents and chancellors and board chairs of the Big Ten and Southeastern Conference schools and go, here's how this is going down, y'all. And you can say broker a deal so that you wouldn't be telling them what to do. But for one thing, the scenario laid out there would have odd numbers of schools in both leagues.
And it's against ESPN's interest.
Yeah.
Because you already have Florida State and Clemson.
That's what I was saying. And that's one of the things we've talked about.
Family of networks.
Yeah. Who owns the ACC network?
That would be ESPN.
Yeah, and Disney. Disney's not going to negotiate against itself. That's horrible business. Not just bad business. It's horrible business. There's a far better likelihood of Disney attempting to work within the structure of the Atlantic Coast Conference to strengthen it from the inside. And we just talked about ways to do that. If it's not going to be the uneven or, unequal distribution of revenues, then again, let Clemson sell whatever. Yeah, okay, they got more viewers. I think Clemson's probably surpassed by Florida State in terms of viewers, right? I would think Florida State is probably
Florida State had some dark days.
Yeah, but in terms of viewership, Florida State probably has more people that watch them than Clemson, unless Clemson's playing Georgia or something.
Larger donor base.
It's just a much bigger school and a much bigger state. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It doesn't mean Florida State's better than Clemson, Tiger fans.
Or more invested.
Yeah, it just means that Florida State is a much bigger school in a much bigger state. So let's be factual about some of these things. Let them sell again, now that you can, then go ahead and do it. Put a logo on the field. Make money that way. I promise you, Florida State and or Clemson will make more from selling that space on their field
a killing
than Duke or Wake Forest or Boston College or Syracuse. Okay, they will, and that's good for them. This is America. I think everybody should do it.
It'd be wise.
Everybody should do it. Do it.
I'm telling you, Clemson would make a killing doing that.
Then Clemson, go get whoever you like up in the upstate to put a patch on your uniform, put a sticker on your helmet. I don't give a crap. Do it. Do it. But this notion that and let me say another thing too. I've spoken with attorneys, including one who's inside this case, and a couple that are outside but know a great deal about it. Clemson doesn't know they have a landing spot unless they have been able to meet with someone and have absolutely, positively zero record of the conversation having ever taken place, because the words tortious interference were explained to me that if the Atlantic Coast Conference members could prove with even like one phrase of one sentence that one of their members had stepped outside the agreement to speak with another conference first before they decided to sue, the amount that second conference could potentially be liable for would be enough to probably shut that conference down. Now, do you really think the Southeastern Conference and Big Ten Conference are that dumb? Because I don't. And again, some of the people that have positions of influence around the Southeastern Conference have told me, off the record, that like North Carolina and Virginia as states would be where you go next. A lot of you, I get it, that you believe streaming is the future. It is. I stream all my stuff. I get it, man. I get it. I'm not some old fuddy-duddy with rabbit ears and trying to get the foil on my antenna to get me a stronger signal on Saturday so I can watch my game. But there are still tens of millions of cable subscribers. Cable's not dead. It's not even really dying.
It makes up most of Nielsen ratings.
It does.
For themselves. And Nielsen ratings will tell you exactly how many people are watching at any given time, which is still a bleep ton of people.
It is, man. It is. So, like, I get it. You're passionate about but it ain't. And also, this ain't happening before the school year starts. It would have done it already.
Last question is tortious interference a 15-yard penalty or a spot foul?
It's probably a 15-yarder. You might get ejected too. All right, more coming up. Welcome back into the postgame show. That's the dulcet tones of our very good friend, Michael Haney. His brand new song, he and Seth Hancock put that out.
Some new music.
It's a cover of an old INXS song, but they've kind of, as Michael told me, he didn't say they countryed it up. He said it was like they Americana'd it up, which I thought was a nice way to put it.
There's a difference.
But Seth Hancock met Michael last year and decided they wanted to do that together. So that is out today, just released, literally today. So find it wherever you get your music. It's all over the place.
It is.
Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music.
Wherever you stream your stuff, man.
It's called Don't Change. So, again, a cover of an old INXS tune. But happy for Michael and Seth. Good stuff.
Fantastic stuff.
All right. I get quizzed here?
You do get quizzed.
This is what we're doing. So I'm here for the music.
We are cueing the music. Today's game, though, I want to make you guess that coaching tree. I want to give you an active coach. And you're going to tell me, well, in one of these instances, inactive. But you're going to tell me whether they belong to the Nick Saban, Steve Spurrier, or Mike Leach coaching tree.
Oh, boy.
We're going to start easy here.
Okay.
We're going to start with Bob Stoops.
I guess that's going to be the Steve Spurrier coaching tree.
That would be correct. Now, this isn't...
Because it could be the Bill Snyder coaching tree.
This is who you directly coached for.
Okay.
To make it easier.
Okay.
Because we can get crazy with actual coaching trees.
There's like all kinds of limbs out there.
Yeah, and some of them intermingle with other trees.
Right.
And, yeah, it gets a little incestuous.
All right. So Bob Stoops. So I'm 1 for 1.
You're 1 for 1.
Sweet.
Dave Aranda, current head coach of Baylor.
Who are my choices again?
Nick Saban, Steve Spurrier, or Mike Leach?
Dave Aranda, Nick Saban.
Incorrect. Dave Aranda was a grad assistant from 2000 to 2002 at Texas Tech, where Mike Leach coached.
Oh, my goodness.
He is in the Mike Leach coaching tree.
See, I don't think of anybody defensive-minded working for Mike Leach.
That's the irony here. That's the ultimate irony of
Although,
this.
again, there's another irony that Bob Stoops worked for Steve Spurrier. But Steve knew that I needed to get a better defensive coach if I wanted to win a title.
Did forget to mention that, yes, Bob Stoops, Florida defensive coordinator, 96 to 98.
Yeah.
Let's go with Hugh Jackson. The infamous coach of the winless Browns.
Yeah. Nick Saban.
Also incorrect. That would be Steve Spurrier. He was Steve Spurrier's offensive coordinator in 2003 with the artist formerly known as the Washington Redskins.
Goodness gracious.
1 for 3. All right. Pat Shurmur.
Ooh.
Currently on Colorado staff still, I think.
Let's go Leach.
Incorrect. That'd be Nick Saban. Pat Shurmur was a Michigan State tight end coach and offensive line coach and special teams coordinator at Michigan State from 1990 to 97.
Oh, my God. That's a
Wow,
long
Nick
time
Saban
ago,
was
man.
there. It
It's
was.
a long time ago.
This is a little more recent. Derek Dooley.
Was he at LSU with Nick?
You would be correct.
There you go.
He was the
There you
LSU
go.
tight end coach, 2000 to 2002.
Yeah. All right. That's 2 for 5.
That's right, 2 for 5.
And again, if I'm a ball player, I'm all right.
Marvin Lewis.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to say that Marvin was also with Nick in the NFL.
Incorrect. He was Steve in the NFL. He was the defensive coordinator for Steve Spurrier in 2002 with the artist formerly known as the Redskins. Lincoln Riley.
Okay, wait a minute now. Because Lincoln's see, and if you're going to tell me he was a GA somewhere, I'm going to really... Let's go Leach.
That'd be correct because he played for Mike Leach and was one of his GAs from 03 to 09.
Well, I knew he played for him, but that's why I was going to you're going to hook me with a GA thing here.
GAs count. GAs definitely count.
All right. So
Dana Holgerson.
Dana. Oh man. Was Dana with Steve?
Dana was with Mike Leach, assistant at Valdosta State from 93 to 95 and OC at Texas Tech from 2000 to 2007.
Okay. I didn't know if maybe Dana was like on the staff at Florida back in the late 90s or something.
And last one, Mike Mularkey.
Let's go, Saban.
And then you'd be correct. Ending on a make.
There you go.
He was his OC in Miami in 2006.
Yeah, I see that. I knew that was an NFL guy, so there's that.
Well done.
Thank you. I do what I can here. That's pretty good. I'll take that. That's better.
I did give the expectation a little higher, though.
That's better than some of them. Thanks again to our good friend Brad Crawford. Check out what he had to say on the website or on the app, 1075thegame.com. We'll do it all again tomorrow. See you.
One coaching tree that I'm a part of is the coaches over my friends at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss. Look, weight loss can be a team effort sometimes. Not everybody can do it by themselves, especially when it comes to working with people who are trained and experts in nutrition and sleeping habits, and people that are really good at doing what they do to give you a personalized plan to reach your weight loss goal. And they do all of this without any shots, without any pills, nothing like that. Great coaching, great game plan, and even better execution of that game plan. My friends Paul Grant and Shaylin at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss have done wonders for me to reach my goal of 15 pounds, and we're at 20 and counting. They can do the same thing for you to not only lose the weight, but to maintain the weight that you want to be at. If you're interested in learning the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and starting your own success story like myself, give them a call, 803-824-4210. It's 803-824-4210, or go to ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com. Results may vary.